crying in the club right now.
That's what we get for going so deep into this.
I
Like,
know, I
like
know.
hurts even more. But
Yes. Hey there, welcome to the Winx Forever podcast. I'm Lola, creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan. I'm taking a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004, like myself, or you vaguely remember it from your childhood, or even if you're being introduced to it for the first time, I want to say welcome. This is the Winx Forever podcast. Hello, fairy friends. Welcome to the first episode of our Fate the Winx Saga Season 2 rewatch on the Winx Forever podcast. I am your host, Lola Valentine. I know, I have been putting off, and I mean putting off this rewatch of Fate's second season because, as I'm sure you all know by now, Fate is not getting renewed by Netflix to produce a third season. And I, along with many others, was absolutely devastated and heartbroken by this news. And it is for that reason that I've just dreaded reliving the excitement and the drama of the second season, only to be reminded that, like, it ends with this season. There's not going to be another one. So but here I am. I'm finally doing it, and to help me dissect all there is to know about Fate season 2, I have invited my good friend Winx comic scholar now, and also Winxer and Fate stan Dane. Welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for coming back.
thank you for inviting me back. I'm so excited that we get to talk about this.
I know.
It's gonna be so much fun because this season is really something special.
It
So
really is, and it's insane to think that it's been over a year that it's been out now, even too.
mhm.
So has it?
Yeah,
Is that
September
true?
of 2022.
I
Right? Time
can't
just flew
with
right by.
time.
Like,
I cannot. I can't believe that. Wow, that's incredible. But first, how have you been? Tell
I've
us
been
about
so
what you've been up
good.
to.
Oh my gosh, well, things have been going pretty well.
Yeah.
I recently started collecting some very rare English printings of the Winx
Yes.
graphic novels and magazines.
Ah!
And so, like, these are so hard to find. I didn't realize how hard it was to find the Winx magazine in English.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to track some down. And so I bought them. And oh my goodness, it is so refreshing to see a new perspective on
Mm.
this universe, as well as like seeing how a lot of this is very similar to what we're seeing in this young adult adaptation. So,
Right? I feel like I've not been able to, like you said, they're so scarce to find in English.
mhm.
Like I've never read, I think, past maybe like issue like 15 maybe. And so
Yeah,
like it's like super hard to find them. There are some resources online where you can read them digitally, but like it's not the same. We're like
yeah,
holding
definitely
it in
not.
your hand. And
So,
also like a lot of those are fan translations too, so
mhm.
it's like there's a lot of like discrepancies,
Yes,
between it and the
yes,
original.
totally.
So I love that. Tell us like what you have been like, what's been your favorite thing about like diving into the Winx comics?
Oh my goodness. I love that there's so much more there. Like, how do I explain it? Like, they're able to do so much more in these comics because they're able to draw like anything on the
Mm,
page, right? They're not limited to animation resources
yeah,
or like
budget,
budget and all that. There's
right.
so much freedom to do all of these amazing
Oh,
things. They explore so many places that we've heard of briefly in the show at times, but sometimes there are even things in here that are like exclusive to the comics. It's kind of like,
yes.
yeah, like an alternate timeline, but
Mhm.
like also between the gaps of seasons, and
Yes.
there's so much that just like
Oh,
gets expanded on in these stories, and they come
I love
directly in
that.
House from Rainbow too. So
Mhm.
that's like such an exciting thing to know that these are all stories from the
Yes.
original hub and heart of the Winx Club.
Oh, I love that. And I love what you said of like there's like not as many limitations as they have with like an animated show with a comic,
Hmm.
which it also gets me excited that Fate has been picked up by Paper Cuts to release, to continue the story, right? Through comics.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that news?
Ooh, I'm nervous. Because I talk about it a lot. We're going to talk about it a lot in this podcast, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
elements in the cinematic universe for Fate that you
Yeah.
can't really do in a paper format. But I am
Mm.
excited to see like the other side of that in terms of like the things that they couldn't do because of budget constraints in the
Yes.
graphic novels. Like they could really pick up the magic in a way that's like out of this world. And I'm definitely
Yes.
excited to see where they take it. And it
Yeah.
seems like the writer is really passionate about like all the nuances and just everything that makes Fate
Yes.
so complex. She's really
Mhm.
passionate about it. So I'm very excited to see kind of where they take it.
Which is
Yeah.
good, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing that like Fate struggled with too is the
Hmm.
passion like behind it. Like don't get me wrong, like the people that worked on this, like you can tell loved what they were doing with the
Oh
people they
yeah.
were doing it with, right?
For sure.
But they always in a way seemed like kind of I don't want to say embarrassed by or just like they just didn't mention Winx enough,
Hmm.
like in the interviews and even the actors like talking about the show, they were actually instructed to not watch the series
Yeah, yeah.
before they started recording. And so like there's a lot, of fan feelings towards that. But um what I think Fate missed the mark on and what I think needs to happen with any Winx Club property from now moving forward is you've got to be all in. You've got to be
Yes.
all in
Oh
on
yeah.
Winx Club. Like you
Totally
can't
feel
you
that.
right? Like you can't like just like half-ass it. You can't just be like, "Oh yeah, it's some fairy show." Like no. No,
Hmm.
no, no. It's not just some fairy show. And I think that's why Netflix got it wrong. I think that's why
Hmm.
Nickelodeon got it wrong.
Yeah.
That's why the early golden years of Winx Club thrived so well because it was Rainbow solely producing it and also like for kids who really enjoyed that property as well like was all in on
Yeah,
Winx Club. And so
totally.
yeah, and so I think that having that is exciting for the comic writer of the fake comics to be all in on it because like that's what we need. We
Totally
need
feel
the
that, right?
excitement.
Like, yeah, it'd be nice. And on top of that, I think when they greenlit Fate in the first place, there was obviously a lot of like uncertainty. Like, are we going to be able to
Mhm.
adapt a show about fairies and get these older
Mhm.
people to watch it? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think they even tried doing like Wrecked Angels at some point where we were going to see the girls as like spiritual embodiments of powers
Mhm.
rather than
Ugh.
fairies. But
Ugh.
I think that that's just the guys in the suits making the decisions. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
absolutely. Money definitely drives a lot of decisions
Hmm.
in those rooms, and that's unfortunate to see because I feel like a lot is lost because of that. Like
Oh yeah.
like you said, like with a comic, like they're not restricted by like, much budget, like whereas like they'll be able to hopefully dive into deeper plots and character arcs that got completely cut
Yes.
in
And there were
Fate
so
that we'll
many.
talk about. I know,
Yeah.
I know, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, that's super exciting. I'm super excited to have you on and to talk about Fate season 2. But before we like dive into the first episode, I would love to talk about season two's where we were, like let's reminisce, like we were real high off of season one. We're like it wasn't the greatest, but it's exciting because it's a new Winx property. It's like fun, and so and it was a lot better than a lot of people expected, and so
Hmm. I know for me personally too, like I definitely feel like Fate is so much more watchable to me than like
Mm.
season 5 onward for the Winx Club.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
it's night and day. Like I could show Fate to some friends. I don't know if I could get some friends to watch season 5 with me. So I could get
That's
my dad
so
to watch
true
Fate.
though.
I don't know if I could get my
Oh,
dad to watch Winx Club season 5.
right.
So it's like, yeah.
That is so
But
true though. But like when I remember just like watching it all unfold as like the cast came back to Ireland to film this season. It was still, like heavily like COVID times,
oh my gosh,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
they were all masked, and there's even some you can even tell in some scenes where like they were not all there in the same scene because of COVID, and so like
Yeah.
there were rules and stuff
Yeah.
back then still because I think that we either just gotten the vaccine or like there was no vaccine yet.
hmm
So like there, it was still no, that's probably not true. I think probably everyone had like their first shot like by then,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And around that time. And so it's just wild to like reminisce and think back of like when they started like showing like Flora even. Oh my God, Flora's
Oh
in this
yeah.
season.
Oh my goodness. The excitement
Oh.
that like everybody was like building up with that. Like I feel like people were anticipating, people were like trying to figure out who was going to play Flora. Like there were
Mhm.
so many rumors circulating, and then we finally
Oh
find
yeah.
out, and yeah, it was great. So
Yes. Like Paulina like killed it. Like
I
as
loved her
Flora,
take.
she's such a cute Flora. I
Right?
cannot.
The
And I love
buns
how
too. Oh,
yes, and how like her whole all of her wardrobe is just so sweet. I love it so
right.
much.
Oh my
And how
goodness.
actually Paulina like crochets and she crocheted
Oh,
all of the
really?
girls. Yes, she crocheted all of the Winx Suite members like stuff for the end of like filming. Like as a wrap gift, she crocheted all of
That's
them
so
gifts.
sweet.
Yes, right? It's so cute. But yeah, so I just want to kind of set the expectation for these rewatch episodes because as we dive into Fate season 2, I do want everyone listening to keep an open mind and really just enjoy the ride of like what we're doing in these because it's going to be a lot like if you've not listened to my Fate season 1 rewatches, they were some of the first podcast episodes I ever produced because I released this podcast around the time season 1 had just dropped. So if you want to listen to those, go back and listen to those to get ready for this one. But I know that Fate is still, pretty polarizing to many people in the Winx fandom. And like, I totally understand why. I was skeptical of the show at first, but, was very surprised about how much it actually did resemble, my favorite fairy show, in a new and interesting way that has not been done in the Winx Club franchise yet. And like it was really cool to see. But I also want to note too that while I can enjoy Fate for what it was, it doesn't excuse it from, some of the criticisms that we have for it as we rewatch it together. And trust me, there's plenty. There's plenty to
Plenty of them.
criticize.
Oh yeah. So
Well, cool. So we're gonna take a little break, but when we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into Fate the Winx Saga Season 2 by dissecting Episode 1 of Fate the Winx Saga, so don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. Hey fairy friends, Lola Valentine here. In case you missed it, the Winx Forever podcast launched our very own Discord community. Discord has been a great place to connect with so many wonderful Winxers from around the world to talk about our favorite fairies. I wanted to try and recreate the magic of the original Winx Club online English forums from the old WinxClub.com website. So we've got forums where you can post your own topics and respond to others' posts in every Winx topic imaginable. Click the invite link in the description below to join the Winx Forever podcast Discord community. And remember, the magic's in you. And we are back to dive even deeper into Fate the Winx Saga Season 2 by dissecting Episode 1. And the title of this episode is Low Flying Panic Attack. Real fun, real cool. The synopsis of this episode says Bloom and the rest of the Wink Suite members, chafing under Rosalind's new regime at Althea, make a risky plan to save Silva. Aisha meets a mysterious new character, and Sky is still processing the news from the last season of his father being alive and Saul lying to him about killing him. Well, it wasn't really a lie. Saul also thought that well, it was a lie. I'll take that back. It was still a lie because Saul did still think that he killed him. Anyway, yeah, so that pretty much sums up that the synopsis of this episode. Let's freaking get into it with the opening scene. So the season opens with a little senior high schooler party happening in the woods outside of Althea's grounds. We see some new characters in Ivy, who is a specialist, and Devon, a mind fairy. They're making out away from the group when Devon feels like this rush of disgust. And as they start to investigate, something takes control of the character Ivy, and it forces her to stab herself in the neck. This is so graphic and disgusting. And it assumedly like unalives her immediately, and Devon tries to, flee for his life, and he gets attacked by some unknown creature. And then it cuts to the title screen. Like totally chill, totally like, whatever, like nothing ever happened. Like this
Right?
wasn't the like most absolute like crazy cold open to have for a season 2 of a show. Like it was absolutely just completely different from what we got as a cold open in season 1, right? It was,
Yeah.
way more special effects, way more horror vibes, and like
Mm-hmm.
a tons better than just like the little old like fucking sheep guy. Like
Yeah. And that was just like pure horror in that first season. Like there wasn't really anything else to that scene. You're just like stuck in suspense,
okay,
like what's
yeah.
about to happen, you know?
Yes,
Two
yes.
characters we never see again, the sheep and the groundskeeper. Like
Right. Yeah,
so
it was super wild. But yeah, it's crazy that like this scene really does set up like the entire season. Like you're
it
in
really
it.
does,
Like
yeah.
this is what you're in for.
Especially like the way it starts with that ominous like forced intro, and we're like thinking, oh, here we go again. And then of
Yeah.
course we pan down to some students like listening to Grimes music, partying at the bonfire,
Mhm.
like just so much more dynamic this time around. We get to see a little bit more about how like mind fairy magic can be used, and like the
Yes.
dynamics of these new characters, Devin and Ivy and Nick, the guy who throws the beer can. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because I think he
Yes.
comes up again at some point, but yeah, it was just
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was a good one. I like how when we're seeing like the moment in the forest when Ivy and Devin are out in the forest, like when
Mm.
Ivy starts to like freeze up, like she can't move, I thought she was
Yes.
going to explode. Like I
Oh!
thought that's what was going to happen. And then to see her like, stab herself in the neck, I'm just like, wow, they're really making this anything but
Yes.
predictable. So,
Yes. And what's wild rewatching it, I thought that she pulled out her like knives as like
mhm,
to defend herself. Now that I'm rewatching it, I'm like, she probably against her will pulled those out.
possibly, yeah.
Like thinking of it now, like they were like gonna leave, but she stops in
Mhm.
her tracks and pulls out her knives. And it's
Yeah,
like you would think like instinctively that's probably what a specialist would do, but at the same time, like they had no reason to like go off like and like find this like random person who is just creeping on them, like whatever. And so, and
right.
especially if she thought that it was Nick, um their other classmate, like why she wouldn't like pull knives
Pull
out
out
on
knives
this
on
like
him, yeah.
dork. Yeah, no, absolutely not. So yeah, that's another like layer to it too. It's just wild.
And then also the fact that Devin knew it wasn't Nick because he had already channeled Nick at the bonfire. And
Yes.
so there's just so much there that like when you really track the magic, it's
Ooh.
pretty intense. Plus, mind fairies are so much more intuitive naturally,
Mhm.
like even when they're not channeling. And so I think he could tell that something was off around them, and that's why he channeled in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, and like it's not like he's a freshman that doesn't know how to control his powers. No, these are
Mhm.
seniors having a party.
Yeah.
Like and like no, they're like the most advanced at Althea as far as students go. And so of course like yeah, that's wild to think about. So after the opening credits, we get a shot back at Althea and we are taken to the Stone Circle, where Rosalind is lecturing Bloom's class about how they need to rely on their instincts in combat, using their emotions as mere tools instead of relying on them as Farah taught them last semester. Standing in the middle of the Stone Circle, Bloom is up against Althea alum Marcus, who we met last season, who we assume, you know, at this point has been hired on as a teacher after he graduated. So Marcus is like firing these electricity energy balls at Bloom until she gets so frustrated enough to like flame on. For a lack of a better term, before she like completely stops herself from losing control and she rejoins her friends where they're sitting. When I tell you, like, I absolutely had chills in this scene when I first saw it. Like, if the cold open didn't clue you in onto like how much of a step up this season is from the previous season, this scene will. Like, I absolutely love the music choice. I love the entire soundtrack of Fate season 2. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal, but like more so you can just tell like the Winx suite members are just more mature, like now, like in their friendship, but also like in their powers. You can tell like they're closer as friends, and like even the fashion, I feel like
Oh
is
yeah.
a major step up. Like it's a new
Yeah.
costume designer, yeah, for the season. So, you know, like the longer this season goes on too, I feel like the more it just feels right, like with
Definitely.
Winx, you know.
Yeah, and I like what you said, how it's like just chill inducing. That's exactly how I felt. Like we see
Mhm.
the aerial drone shot zooming into Althea, and then like on top of that, like just the action shots at the Stone Circle. It's we're right
Mhm.
back to school, but like we're back at school. They're in
Yeah.
class. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not just any class either. It's Rosalind's class above all else. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Oh.
And Bloom's right up against like the most built fairy on campus. I don't know a stronger fairy than Marcus. So
I know. Yes. Like doesn't Stella in season 1 call him like badass Marcus or something like that?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Oh
has a
my
nickname.
god.
I gotta go back and find it now because it's
Me
like,
too.
yeah.
Yes.
But I love how there's just you can tell the stakes are already higher. Like things are getting a little bit more serious. Rosalind is totally redirecting the class. Like the instructions that Farah gave, they are no longer
No
in
longer
session.
applicable.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. She's telling them like we're no
Mhm.
longer relying on your emotions as the driving force of your magic. It's just a
Mhm.
tool. You're going to start relying on instinct, and
Mhm.
that's kind of like segueing into letting go and losing,
Mhm.
control of your magic in a way. So yeah, the
Yeah.
fashion, while it's definitely not like color coordinated Y2K, like I feel like a lot of people wanted to see.
Mhm.
Um, it's still very modern. In fact, like there's
Yeah.
a Cosmopolitan magazine article that actually breaks down each of the designers that the girls are wearing throughout the show for the most part. Like there's a cheat
Incredible.
sheet and everything. Yeah. So
Yes.
it's definitely nice to see that they put more thought into it in that sense. And then they also kind
Mhm.
of explain how like we're not really setting the fashion like Euphoria or Gossip Girl or those shows.
Yeah.
This is supposed to like kind of stay in style as time goes on. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Also,
Yeah,
it's
I love
cold
that.
as hell in Ireland.
You're
So
right.
like I
It's
cannot
so
imagine.
cold. Oh my gosh, yeah, being out there in like a little like midriff, like and
Yeah.
low-rise jeans, absolutely not.
No way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And also like thinking about like Marcus joining Althea, like good for Althea. Like they
Right?
gained one teacher. They gained one new teacher out of all this mess. Like in season 1 they were severely understaffed.
Totally.
I mean, they're
Oh my
still
gosh.
understaffed because like they don't got Silva and like Farrah's gone. She's like MIA. Well, she's dead, but like,
Yeah,
ugh. And so yeah, like there's just like we need more teachers at
for sure.
Alfea.
So,
Oh, so funny. So later, in the headmistress's office of Althea, Bloom is having an exchange with Rosalind about her progress at school. Rosalind commends Bloom for her loyalty towards Farah, but informs her that the search for Farah Dowling has been called off by the Solarian Guard, insinuating that if Bloom wants to become a powerful fairy, she must trust Rosalind and forget about Farah entirely. So during Rosalind's lecture here, Bloom is also made aware that the other world is a lot more dangerous than she probably realizes, because she's like, I don't like, what are we training for to protect the other world from what? And Rosalind's like, you think that the burned ones are like the only like menacing thing out there? She's like, I know what's out there, you know, like they're not the
yeah,
only things. And she's like, and you need my help to like protect the realm from it. And it's like, that is heavy.
I also love that when she was telling Bloom, like she said something like, "You have no idea the kinds of nightmares that exist here," and it's really interesting because in the Winx comics, all the monsters that enter into the or all the monsters that enter into the magic dimension are kind of from the nightmares of people. They cross over from the dream world
Yes.
into their realm. So yeah, I thought that was
That's
interesting.
such a good point, though. Oh my God. See, this is why you're on the show. Yes. Something also to note. So Leslie Sharp, who portrayed Rosalind in the first season of Fate, was replaced by Miranda Richardson, who is now Rosalind in the second season. And
Wonderful
personally,
actress.
yes, yeah, nothing against Leslie Sharp. Like, you know, I'm sure she's a great actress, but just didn't like portray this character in Fate in season one like as I would have hoped to have seen. Like Miranda's portrayal of Rosalind is a lot more menacing. It's much less old
Yes.
lady
Hmm.
and a lot more like, oh no, she's like bad.
Yeah, and she's mysterious about it, and like
Mm,
I think that's what really helps because I feel like Leslie's portrayal in season one was much more of like you can tell that she is just evil. Like
mhm.
my gut instincts would tell me that like she's evil. She kind of has like this ancestral witch like icy type of
Yes.
vibe, especially with the
Yeah.
ponytail on the back of
Oh
her head.
yes,
Like I thought,
TBD.
yeah, I thought this was gonna be
Mhm.
icy, and I was like, okay, so like, is
Oh,
that
yeah.
where this character's going? But obviously, in season two, you know, things are a little bit different with this new
Mhm.
actress. I did question why Bloom was so trusting of her in season one because I was like, she's so like,
Clearly evil.
yeah, she's clearly evil. Why are you so trusting of her? But
But
then I kind
also
of thought
Farrah
about
was
it.
towing that line too a little bit in season
Yeah.
one of like she could be
Hmm.
evil as well, you know?
Right? Yeah, you know, she couldn't really trust anybody at that point, and
Mhm.
Rosalind was kind of giving her like not really direct answers, but she was kind of, you know, scooting Bloom.
Giving her more than Farrah
Yeah,
was, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of why she was so trusting of Rosalind. A lot of people called her really naive, but I think even in the animated series, Bloom's kind of naive too. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely she is.
Avalon and Selena and
Ooh,
Valtor's
yes,
lies,
though.
Sky's lies, especially in the comics. Oh,
Valtor absolutely gaslighting Bloom, saying
hmm,
that his direct life force was connected to her parents' life force. Are you kidding
yeah.
me? Like Bloom,
Like
for a
this man
second.
is,
I know this is a magic
yeah,
world. I know this is magic. But like for a second, just think about this real quick.
make him prove it. Like, yeah.
Right. Ask for proof.
Mhm.
Also, maybe ask your professors if that's even possible in this world. I don't
Yeah.
know. But no, that's a
So,
fair point. Like, yeah, like Bloom, I think that Bloom was looking for answers so much in season one that like Rosalind in season one gave them very easily, whereas like she didn't have to earn them like with Farah. But also
mhm.
that's also parallel to season one of Winx Club as well. You know, like Farragonda made Bloom work for the answers, whereas the Trick's
Yeah.
just like, hey, this is where you're from. Sorry about it. We're gonna take
Yeah, we're
all
gonna
of your
lie to you.
powers. Yes.
So, but yeah, I like this
Absolutely.
portrayal of Rosalind because she's just not as predictable, and like you really don't know at first like what's kind of going through her head. And I like that
Hmm.
because it really adds a level of suspense to the show that I feel like it
Yeah.
kind of needed. So
Yeah. And also, like, Rosalind's character in season 2 very much gave me more Griselda vibes
yeah, kind of.
because of the style, because of the new haircut. I believe, like, if Griselda did run Alfea, it would be more like of a military school, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
So I really do think like I'm surprised that Rosalind like didn't like institute like a like dress code or like a uniform, you know, like really thought like that would have probably been something that she would have done. But that being said, I really can't stand Rosalind's character. Like
Yeah.
especially this season, like you know Miranda does do a good job, but like I just feel like Rosalind as a character and as a like driving force of the series, it does feel forced. Like it feels like we don't have a lot of time to get to understand her as like a villain or like an anti-hero or like whatever she is, you know, like we don't know what she really is or what her motives truly are until it's too late, and then we'll
Hmm.
never get to know. You know, like I feel like she was just like there to cause conflict while they needed it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can totally see how, like, especially with how fast the show is going, like, it can totally be kind of hard to keep up with, like, who is she? Is she,
Hmm.
like, what are her motives? Is she trying to help the fairies? Is she really against the blood witches? Is she on
Hmm.
her own team? Like, and then if she
I think
is,
that
then
one.
why?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And then we never know.
well, if you take a really close look at some of what she does, especially in this episode, I'll point out like a really good instance a little
Mm.
bit later. You can kind
Mhm.
of see where the wheels start to turn with like her
Mm.
plan for not only the other world, but especially Bloom.
Ooh,
Yeah, I got a good little
interesting.
breakdown
All
on
right.
that. But
All
I definitely
right.
think Rosalind is smarter than people think she is. Like she's definitely like a pawn on Queen Luna's chessboard, but at the
Ooh.
same time, I think she's running her own game because she has her own like she has her own
Motives.
plan. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Meanwhile, as Rosalind's kind of telling Bloom all of this, we see that we get this shot of Saul Silva, who is now in chains at the Solarian capital, being brought um to trial, you know, like as they speak, for the attempted murder of Andreas of Heraklion. So we saw in season 1, but in season 2, wait, what am I saying? We saw this in season 1, but like in season 2, everything is happening like so fast. Like so fast. We just talked about it, you know, about not getting to get to know the character of Rosalind well because of this, but also like to see it play out even just in this episode and me rewatching and be like, I was it this fast when I watched it the first time, you know, like it was just like watching it for a rewatch and a deep dive like this is so different than watching it for entertainment. Because
right,
you
because
get to like see all of the things, you're like, wait a minute, like you
mhm,
notice things you didn't notice the first, second, third time you
yes.
watched it. You're like, oh.
Noticing like every little detail that you miss. Like I definitely caught
Hmm.
myself when I was taking notes. I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much here that like I did
Could
not
have
catch the first
been.
time
Oh
around
yes, yes,
or the
that as
second time
well.
around. Like
Right.
so
um but I do wonder if like the speed of which like this story is being progressed is due to the budget constraints and the storyline cuts, because I will get into some of that later, but for now I'm just saying like there's a lot that's happening already, and we aren't even into like the first 10 minutes of the episode. So
yeah.
like it goes like so fast. So after her meeting in the headmistress's office, Bloom is walking through like that weird little like everything hall. I'm gonna call it the everything hall because everything happens in this hall at Alfea. So
The
she's
interior courtyard. Yeah.
okay, yeah, the
The
interior
hallway in the
courtyard.
interior courtyard. Yeah.
Because it's also their cafeteria, because it's also where they hold
Mhm.
assemblies, because it's also where they hold the banquet later. Like they use this for everything. Like
Yeah.
I said, budget cuts. Anyway. So they're walking through this interior courtyard of Althea when Bloom is talking to Aisha, venting to her about Rosalind, when Sky appears and, you know, like takes Bloom's attention or whatever. Then we see Musa and Tara and Stella, who are on their way to the greenhouse. And Tara's like rummaging through her bag looking for her apron that she must have left in the Winx suite when Stella uses her magic to make herself invisible suddenly as a group of students walk past them. And after that, like an awkward comment from Tara about Stella's desire to not be seen with them is made. And Musa asks Stella, like, I thought you weren't allowed to use your invisibility magic after you ran away from the palace last term. And so Stella explains that, you know, she's not dressed for school wide consumption, but like as long as no one sees her doing it, like it'll be fine. It'll be okay. It will not be fine or okay, Stella,
Yeah, no, people saw
but
you
like,
do it.
yeah.
So
I also love the fact that when Tara's like, I know you're embarrassed to be seen with us, and Stella goes, why would I be embarrassed to be seen with Musa? That's such a
the
savage
playful
remark.
banter. Oh my gosh.
It's
Yes.
so cute.
I
I
love
love it
that
too
too.
when like Musa like smiles over at Tara, like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's so playfully like stuck up in the dynamic, but it's still fun. Like,
Mhm.
and I think that that's nice, and it makes sense for, you know, where they are right now as characters too. Speaking of that, like you really learn a lot from these characters as they like move through the hallway, like kind of like
Mm,
how everybody carries themselves through the space. And I feel like that's
yeah.
something we don't really see much in the animated series, where everybody's kind of off the base like animated model. But here in
Hmm.
Fate, you know, you could see like Tara rummaging around chaotically in her backpack, and
Yes.
Stella lagging behind, and like, you know, it's just Musa walking through like she's the coolest in the room. Like,
Yes.
and
Right.
I
Yes.
love that. Like, I think that that's such a like refreshing aspect about this show in the live action sense.
So as like they're, you know, having this conversation, Stella's like, oh, let's take the shortcut through the East Wing, but they don't make it far as Rosalind has Solarian guards posted at the entryway. Stella asks the guards if they know who she is before Sam, Tara's brother and Musa's boyfriend, shows up and makes it known how he feels about Rosalind's control of the school and its impact it's having on the students and the faculty, but also his family, which
Yeah.
is like his dad works at the greenhouse. You know, he's a teacher at Althea. Um, and honestly, like Professor Harvey's just doing like what he can to survive, you know,
Pretty
and like
much.
Sam's like, "Oh, you're such a wimp. You just fold to whatever Rosalind says." Like, no, he's doing this for you, ungrateful. Like,
Yeah. Like, I feel
hello.
like that's definitely a layer, because like obviously speaking out against Rosalind is a dumb idea. Like, let's talk about dumb
Yes.
ideas. That would not be the move.
Like they're
Um,
shipping like Saul to like this frozen north place. Like, do you want to be
mhm.
next? Do you want to be
Right,
next? Like,
right. And how long, you know, before everybody else starts getting shipped off from
yes.
the original crew. So
Yep. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a
Exactly.
really
And I
good
think Tara
moment.
even talks about that too, like later on. Like she's like, what, how long
Yes.
before that happens to my dad? And it's like, yeah, girl, you need to like rein in your brother. Like he is acting up. Like,
Yeah. There's a really good shot here too, like right before they walk up to the guards, and you know that like magical moment from Magical Adventure happens, where it's like kind of reminiscent of
yes.
that. Like the when Stella shows up to the Kingdom of Domino with the girls in Magical Adventure, right there.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep, yep. Like, you know who I am, right? Like,
yeah.
duh. Like, you are the
Move.
Princess of
Like,
Solaria. Yes.
but this time they turn around, so they don't make
Hmm.
it through. They don't push these guards. So the
Yeah,
Solarian guard
yeah.
is not one to mess around with. I did notice that Stella, when she was like kind of running her mouth to Tara, saying like, "Oh, nobody's seen me do it anyways. It's fine." walking up the stairs, we get a shot of the guard closest to the staircase, and you can see his eyesight and his like field of vision, and he can totally see them,
Totally see it.
which means he
Totally
can
see it.
probably hear them echoing right up the staircase. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Also in this exchange, like there's been a lot of talk of like it was on Rosalind's desk, like a paper of like Blackbridge like Times or whatever, like
mhm.
the town outside of Althea, um is talking about like these twins like that were missing that she had recently expelled from Althea. You know, so like we see that on her desk, and then Musa refers to the twins as the Shining Twins. And I don't know about you, but I do think that like the writers of this show had a seemingly hard time suspending their like earthly references long enough to like remember that they were writing characters and building a world that was like not Earth.
Yeah, the
Um
other world, like
Yes, literally another world.
yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
so, like, you know, I really wanted to see more creativity with like Fate's world building in that sense, especially in season two, because we had so many Earth things in season one that I really wanted season two to be like, okay, no, we're not on Earth. You know, like, and I've said it before, like, the Earth cars, the technology, like, it doesn't really like suspend my disbelief enough like to enjoy the part, like, you know, certain parts of the show because of that, like how they all have freaking smartphones and Instagram.
Yeah.
Like it's like really annoying.
But then the other side of it too is like, oh, being a teenager without a smartphone, like
Well, I mean, they could have like little hologram phones. Like that's where like
yeah,
the sci-fi, like I understand that the sci-fi elements in the original series like would have been like far too expensive of a budget
hologram
for
phones.
like it,
Yeah, that would
right,
have
you know what I
been
mean? Like way
so
too
much.
much like for the budget that Fate did have,
Mhm.
but I still would have liked to have seen like more references to things that made the other world more like
Otherworldly.
real.
Yeah,
Yes, like more convincing, right?
for
Like
sure.
convince me that this is like truly another world.
And not the
Um
backyard of Ireland or like yeah.
right. Like later on how like they mentioned the other world's like version of Jeff Bezos. Like
Mhm.
great, like do more of that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
also like how do they know who Jeff Bezos is? You know?
But I guess it's
Like
also like it's kind of like how here on Earth, like in the real world, we learn about fairy tales and things like that. Maybe in the other world, it's kind of like the same thing. Like they educate
oh.
themselves about like Earth
Oh.
and like what happens over there and the kinds of
Yes.
media they read. And so,
Yeah,
oh, this
right,
is what they think
because
of fairy tales, like Harry Potter.
totally.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, because Aisha read Harry Potter in the first season, you know? And so like there's so many Earth pop culture references, whereas like I feel like in Winx Club, even like sci-fi elements aside,
Hmm.
Winx Club, and especially the 4 Kids version, did a fantastic job of creating that pop culture of like their own world. And it was just
Yes.
like
Their own slang,
phenomenal.
like, yeah,
Yes.
everything.
Oh my God. It
So
was so good. So, but yeah,
I
anyway,
do
I
remember,
digress for now.
yeah. I do remember when Bloom showed up to Magic's in the cartoon, though. She wasn't so like shocked. She's like, Magic City, this is it. Like,
Yeah,
there's a
she was
flying
like,
car right there. Like, so,
yes. Yeah. Well, I
but
think she wanted more of like what Fate is. She wanted
mhm.
it to be like a European fairy tale. You know, she wanted it to be more like she even says like unicorns. Like I wanted
Mhm.
unicorns.
Yeah.
So,
Where's the Western fantasy? Like,
yes, that's what she wanted really badly. And well, she freaking got it in Fate. Bloom,
mhm,
you
yeah,
got
here
your
we are.
wish. No one else asked for this, but here you go. That's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Circling back to Sam at the top of the stairs, though, I will say you can kind of see how his like entrance starts to spiral a little bit, like,
Mm-hmm.
bringing up like, oh, I got to watch my tongue, quasi police state, and like the jokes start to like get a little out of control. You can tell he's really
Oof.
disgruntled with what's going on.
Yes.
And I love that Tara is the one who's like, hey, like, this isn't funny. Like, let me
Yeah.
ground you back to Earth, ground fairy. Like,
Right, right?
Earth
Yes.
fairy. Like, yeah.
I know. Even the fact that they're called Earth Fairies too, which is that's another like like bone to pick for me because like this
The
even happens.
homonym, yeah.
Yeah, like Terra is one thing because it means the same thing, but like it's just funny. It's just funny. Why aren't they just called nature fairies? But then nature could be anything. It could also be, you know, like water could be a nature
Mhm.
fairy. Like it's just a mess.
Yeah, I wonder if the portal to the other world is like kind of like an alternate dimension on Earth.
I was thinking the same thing. Like they're
Yes.
parallel
Mm-hmm.
dimensions.
Like
Like you
that would
could
make
poke a
so much sense
hole.
too. Like I don't know if that's how it is in like the Celtic mythology for the other world, like when they
Hmm.
enter, if it's like a whole other place or if it's
Yeah,
like an alternate dimension on the same in the
right.
same area, I guess.
Like
Like
kind of like how like the wizarding world is in Harry
mhm.
Potter. Like it's
Or
a
like the
world
upside
within the
down.
world. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
In Stranger
Exactly.
Things, like yeah.
Hmm.
So
No, I think that that helps me like justify the way that or the lack of world building, I guess, in Fate in that way. Like that helps me wrap my mind around it enough to be like, okay, you know,
yeah.
like all right, I'll take that
Yeah,
answer.
I'll
We can
take
move
this.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. So when Yusa invites Sam back to the Winx suite, Stella nervously chimes in and reminds her that their, you know, new roommate policy, conveniently made by Tara, of no boyfriends in the suite, as they're, you know, obviously no longer the only couple in the suite. And she glances over to where Bloom and her ex, Sky, are standing. Um, I love this. I think that it's
Sam.
I think that it's like a very uh thoughtful. It's thoughtful to have like those types of rules for your roommates in place. Like it's got to be weird for Stella. Like that's so weird. It's got to be weird for Tara. It's a
Hmm.
freaking weird. Like that's weird. You're dating her brother, your roommate's
Right.
brother.
I love how they
That's
made it up on the spot too. Like it
yes.
was literally on the spot. And I love that between Stella and Tara, especially because it's like it's really a turning point for Stella because you know they just had that banter down in the lower hall and now here they are on the upper
Mm-hmm.
floor. And Stella's like very guarded, obviously, as a character. Um, I did notice that when they were walking up the stairs, Tara was like talking about Queen Luna, and she's like, well, you know, she's the queen, but she's also your mom, but she's also a monster. I'm just trying to like modulate my caretaking with you.
Yes.
And Stella's just like, well, modulate it away from me, please. Like she's not
Yes.
really interested. But then of course, when she needs something, Tara's like confused for a second, but she jumps right in
Mm-hmm.
as the
Mm-hmm.
great friend she is. And she's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
So
whole suite does not even deserve Tara. Like Tara
right.
is
I know.
so good to all of those girls and they
Way
just like
too
crap on her all the time.
right. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
But I love
she's
that.
she's got to be the
Not that they
best.
like pick on her,
No, no,
but
no, no. I
like
love Tara. Yeah, no,
yeah.
Tara's great. I think that she's my favorite part of like the whole like what Fate gave us as a whole. Like Tara is my favorite thing that like Fate ever gave us.
Right. I love Tara so much. And I hope that like maybe we see her in some other format someday.
Ooh.
Like I would love to see that. But
Yes.
um I did notice that like again with the movements that happen like in this live
Mm.
action, Tara noticed that Stella was really in distress over seeing Sky down there.
Yes.
And so she tried to comfort her. And because of that whole exchange, she was like, okay, you can, this is kind of nice. But then, of
Yeah.
course, when Tara like moves her hand down to like touch Stella's hand, she's like, okay,
She's like,
this
that's
is
too much.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good. But I think that really was like a turning point for Stella. Like it had an
Hmm.
impact on her for the time being. I mean, it doesn't stay like
Right.
that, but yeah, it was really sweet to see how that like kind of helped her open up more to the group.
Meanwhile, Aisha heads down to the river for a swim, as we know that she likes to do from the previous season, when she bumps into new character Gray. Aisha seems pretty annoyed actually that he's even there and seems to be like trying to flirt with her. And as she tries to ignore his banter, you know, like he's just like pretty persistent. Um, so once she sees that like this could potentially become a problem for her, if he insists on swimming in the same part of the river as she does, she makes it clear to him that she doesn't want to cross paths with him and suggests a schedule for separate swim times. And I thought that this was so funny because in like he's just trying to like make conversation, right? And he's like, "Hey,
He's
do
being
you have you seen
nice.
that?" Yeah, he's like, "Have you
Yeah.
seen that hawk like nest?" And she's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't get too close. She gets prickly if you get too close."
Hmm.
And he said, and he's like trying to joke, and he's like, "Oh, are you two mates? Like, are you two friends?"
Yeah.
And then as she's like, I'm gonna create a schedule for us. He's like still like thinking about his joke, thinking about it, and then he's like, oh, she didn't get it. He's like, she gets prickly if you get too like he repeats
Yeah.
it like what she said, like trying to almost like explain his joke because he's like, oh damn, like that, like
Right.
it's
It's
so
just
awkward.
it's too funny. And then like, so well, obviously he's interested in Aisha, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so like, she's kind of dodging his handshake, and like there's a different energy here. Like he's trying to be as nice as possible. He's like skipping over some of the social cues she's giving, where she's just like get away, get away. And then
right.
I thought it was so funny when he's like, "Oh, my eyes are up here," and she's like, "And my bag is down there where you're dripping." Like,
He's like, oh, that's less fun.
yeah.
That's
But
so cute.
it's very clear she's conflicted too, because I mean, this guy is gorgeous coming out of
He
the
is
river, like,
so, yes.
yes,
Oh
wearing
my
the
god.
tightest swim shorts I have ever seen on the show. Like, I was just like, this is like Y2K Winx Club, you guys.
Yes, yes, for real though. Oh my god. Meanwhile, with Silva in the hands of the Solarian Guard, Andreas Heraklion and Sky's estranged father is now the headmaster of the specialist, which seems to mean their training is more brutal than ever before. During the specialist sparring session, specifically, Sky and Dane battle against each other on Andreas's orders. They fight until quote unquote first blood. Ooh.
Intense.
And intense. And so Dane wins the spar after he cuts Sky on the side with his sword. Um, and so Riven and Dane bring Sky to the infirmary, which is conveniently in Althea's greenhouse, where Tara and her family administrate healing potions, bandages, and tonics to help aid the specialist wounds from like the new training regiments. There's a lot to be said about like the specialists in Fate the Winx Saga.
Hmm.
Um, I I don't know if any of mine are constructive. Just because like they just felt like the training facility for the specialists is like a yard. Like it feels like an afterthought. Everything like their
Hmm.
little benches that they sit on the side are like from IKEA. You know, like there's just like a
Yeah.
lot of like there's a lot of that I'm just like this could have been much better. The specialist outfits like this season was an upgrade, like with the little like metal or like seemingly metal. I don't think
Hmm.
they were probably real metal. Like, like cutouts like on their suits, but like I don't know, like it just still feels like they're like little boys like playing like night, like they're just
Yeah.
like playing outside playing with swords and like doing a bunch of jumps and spins and like I don't know. Like
The choreography was good. Like, I'll
it
say
was it was a
that.
lot, yeah, it was
Yeah.
a lot better for sure this season.
Hmm.
That which is nice, but there's one scene and we'll get to it later that I'm just like, "Oh, this was a choice."
Oh, no, I think I know which scene you're talking
You do,
about. So I know a few that are just, there are definitely a
you
few, but I love how they're
Yeah.
like actually using swords this time around. They're
That's
not using wood.
true.
Like,
Yeah, that's true.
Andres' training is just like insane. Like, it's
Mhm.
totally brutal in comparison to last season. And I also like in that shot where like Riven's kind of narrating the fight too,
Yeah,
where
that's true.
he's really showing how much of a scholar he really is, like being ahead of the curve here.
Riven
So
did get a glow up this season, I will say.
yeah.
Like Riven got a glow up, Sky got a major glow down. Oh, I do
Mhm.
have to point out Sky is wearing his hair spiky now. You know who also wears his hair spiky? Andreas.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
know, and so
yeah.
like there's like a lot of like influence there for him for sure, because it's like, oh, his like daddy's back, like let's like
Hmm.
start like acting like him and like dressing like him, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, like he and even like later on in this episode, like him like trying to like give this like olive branch of like his what he thought was his father's sword, like, you know, like Sky wants there to be something there. He wants to, I think, but like it's complicated.
For sure. I will say Dane is definitely on his way too. Like Dane is like so
Ooh,
much stronger this season. Like kind of we saw the monster he turned into at the end of season 1 where he is in his own little world doing his
yeah.
thing. But like I will say I like how Riven said Dane has a lot to prove, and it's true. He does, like
Mm-hmm.
compared to, some of the other people, because he has a queer experience. Like he does kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even Silva in the first episode was like, "Must be nice where you can come from a place where you can be so soft." Like that
Yes,
was a gem.
yeah.
So
Ooh, I didn't
yeah.
even think about that, but yes.
The original script
Damn.
was different too.
Nah.
So yeah.
Ooh, damn,
But
that's
yeah,
crazy.
good point right
Yeah.
there.
Get even more magical content when you follow Winx Forever Podcast on social media. While they're in the greenhouse, you know, like Tara is like mortified that Sky comes in like this big gaping wound in his side, and she's like, "What happened?" And Riven's like, "Oh, just a little bit of sparring between friends." And when she's like, "What, you did this?" Like, you know, like kind of like shocked that and like kind of disgusted too at
Yeah.
Dane. And he's like, "Why are you impressed?" And she's like, "Just like get out of here. Like,
Yeah,
I
she's
don't
like,
even
get
like
over
talking to you."
yourself. Like,
Yes. The look she gives. I love Tara.
just her whole
But then
demeanor was like, yeah, her demeanor was just great. So,
it's so good. Yeah, but then also like her and Riven's banter in this scene before he leaves, like it's playful, but like in like a weird way. I don't know. Like if
it's
you've
like a you
read
asked, so I'm gonna tell you. Like,
yes, yeah,
yeah.
no, totally. But also like if you've read the Fate the Winx Saga tie-in novels,
Hmm.
like you'll know kind of like why this interaction between like Riven and Terra is so much more meaningful than just like Riven being a jerk to Terra. You know, like
Yeah.
there's just like a lot more there than like we realize, and we'll also get to know a little bit more about the odd pairing later in this season, but like for now it's just like that's weird. Like last season, like she was like stringing him up with some vines, like choking him to death, and like now
Right.
like they're just like playful little like banter, you know, like okay.
Which I think is a sign of maturity, I would say. And I think something I noticed about Tara too is she loves the hot topic. Like if she has
Yeah,
anything,
she does.
like
She loves some hot
yeah.
goss.
It's like her way of like kind of being in on the in throughout the suite sometimes, because she can be seen as a
Yes.
little bit much at times, and I think that kind of helps
Hmm.
like her ease into the space. But like love about this is that like when she notices Riven is tech like when she
Checking
notices
out
Riven is
Dane.
yeah checking out Dane, um he's like, what, like use your words. Like he's just like
Yes.
doing this whole thing, and she's like, well, it's not just me, everybody wants to know, like, what
Uh-huh.
is this? And he's like, well, if you really want to know that bad, I can draw you a diagram, you can keep it by your
Yeah.
bed, like. And she's just like,
Uh
no, I'm good, I should, like, I think it was like a playful way of like asking, like a playful way of like saying, like, mind your business. Like,
Right, yeah.
yeah.
But also too, I think because at this point, and this is a spoiler for sure, like at this point, Tara's still closeted too. So
Hmm.
she might also be kind of jealous of the boldness to like be in a polyamorous relationship and like not care
Yeah.
and not give a fuck, you know, like that's a huge thing for her too. Be like she's probably in a way, and this is weird, in a way she might be like looking for like advice,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like from
Yes.
that situation. And so like that's wild when you think about it from that side too.
I'm
Ugh.
so glad you brought that up. That made me think about like in season one when we see Tara and Riven on the bench and they're kind of having a conversation. He's
Mhm.
like, "Well, is Dane even gay?" And then I remember like her face is just like there. Her face kind of. I was thinking to myself there. I was like, okay.
Mm,
And so it really
mhm.
kind of plays in, especially into this season. We'll see it a little bit later, but keep an eye on like Tara's facial expressions when like
Yes.
relationships come
They
up. So
tell a lot, a lot, a lot for sure. Man, yeah. So after Tara patches up Sky, he leaves to meet up with Bloom, who texted him that their Winx suite is empty, which, according to Beatrix, can only mean one thing. Looks like clumsy vanilla sex is on the menu this afternoon. So, during like their makeout session, Bloom and notices Sky's injury from sparring and pays close attention to like this, you know, fresh wound. When she asks like what, so like they like stop making out like promptly
mhm.
because Sky's like kind of like
In pain,
frustrated.
wincing.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's in pain. He's frustrated like about his biological father like really causing, you know, this type of pain on him and his classmates. And, you know, Bloom then decides this is a great time to ask if he's heard anything about Sylva's trial. Like, and then that at that moment, there's this perfectly timed knock that they hear on, you know, her dorm room door. And lo and behold, it's Beatrix sent by Rosalind to deliver the bad news that Saul Silva's sentenced to Polaris, which is apparently like what they call like a death sentence, you know, more or less.
Frozen
Like
North.
he
Yeah.
yeah, he's going to a frozen like continent, like
On a boat.
not on a boat, like not good, not good. um but I've seen so many people like online ask like, "Oh, why didn't they send him to the Omega dimension? Like the Trix and Valtor were sentenced to in season 3 and like and then the original Winx Club series." And I'm like, I for one, for some reason in my brain, I had always thought that Polaris was a planet in the original Winx Club
Same.
series. I
Yeah.
don't like, where did we get that from? I don't know what that was. The only thing that I can think of like what aligned that with whatever was in my brain was in the Four Kids dub of the Miss Magics episode. Lucy lied about being from a planet called Popularis, which
Yeah, I
is like
remember
just
that.
close enough for like my like dyslexic brain to be like, oh, Popularis, Polaris. That's
Yep.
totally the same thing. So that's the only thing I think of. But also like I feel like as I have been rewatching this season for this deep dive, there's a lot of, I don't want to say it's clumsy writing,
Mhm.
but I think that it all goes back to the budget restraints and the
And it's too
cutting
fast.
of it's too fast. It's too
Yeah.
fast and there's clumsy writing where like it doesn't have to happen. Like for example, like this makeout scene with Bloom and Sky is very like it's awkward, first of all. It's like so awkward. I hate
Like
this
the
scene.
jarring transition into it from
Yes,
the
the jar
he's
well, the
getting a
jarring
text.
transition and like he and like the like when he pauses just to like brush her little hair off of her shoulder. Like I hated that. I hated
Mhm.
that. That can never happen again. Like ever. That was terrible. And like the awkward like I don't know. It went from like the hard makeout session to them talking about like Andreas awkwardly, and then Bloom
Mhm.
randomly bringing up Silva, then to Beatrix showing up like quite literally like to say nothing. Like
Yeah.
Beatrix was just there. I feel like the only reason they brought her into that scene was to deliver the funny like clumsy vanilla sex line and then
Mhm.
to establish that she doesn't enjoy being referred to as Rosalind's little helper. Like I feel like there could have been a better way to have presented all of these elements
Yeah.
differently before this scene. Like, not all together, all in this one string of sequence, like this whole sequence. Like, Bloom could have asked if, like, you know, like he's heard anything about Silva when she saw him in the like courtyard or whatever. Like, she, like, Beatrix, is this the first time we've seen Beatrix in this season so far?
Other than at the stone circle, I think so,
Yeah.
yeah. Because she had the clipboard at the stone circle.
Yes,
So
that's right.
yeah, which
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah. So
um
like I like in yeah, anyway, continue.
I actually kind of liked the scene when I watched it. I didn't like obviously the transition into it was a little bit jarring with like
Mhm.
you just see them making out in their room going wild,
Crazy.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I do like that Bloom stopped in the middle of their moment and was like,
Mm.
"Hey, like Sky, like what's going on?" Because he's wincing, and then he just
Mhm.
tries to like go back into it, and then she does like a
Right.
full stop after a few seconds, like, "Hey, like stop, like what's going on?" And then the
Yeah.
vibe of the room kind of changes when that happens. Like they're
Yeah.
no longer like as close
In
as they
it.
were in
Yeah.
that moment. So
Yeah.
and then it's nice that she's trying to get him to open up about what's going on because I feel like that is such an issue for Sky just in
Mm.
general, is that like at the end of season 1 when they were on the lawn and she's, saying, "Hey, that's the same uniform as yesterday.
A
Like
lot.
what's going
Mhm.
on?" And then he like didn't say anything. Like he was just like, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine." And look at Miss Dowling over there. Go say hi to her. Like it's kind of one of his issues, like where he just can't
Mhm.
open up and he's like struggling to do that. So I like that she's kind of igniting him to talk about his problems because I feel like
Mhm.
there's a little bit of a complementary dynamic there. Granted,
Yeah.
shouldn't always be the case. Like at some point, he needs to
Do
grow
it
up and
himself.
yeah, use
Yeah.
your words, like.
Use your word.
Like, so, and then I like Beatrix's entrance into the scene because I think it was funny, but also
It was
because it
funny.
shows that, like, okay, when she enters a room, she just brings a nasty attitude. Like, she could have said anything
Mhm.
else to Bloom, but she like made her bed in that moment. Like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna like rag on you for, the clumsy vanilla sex and
Yeah.
like I like how Bloom just kind of like didn't really stoop to her level, but she was like, okay,
Mhm.
Rosalind's it'll help her. Like, what does she
Yeah, yeah,
want?
yeah.
Like, um, that was definitely nice. Yeah, but it really goes to show that when Beatrix like enters a room, especially somebody else's room,
Yes.
like she tends to not bring the best energy because of like, who she is as a character. And I think we'll get a
Mhm.
little bit more into that later.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oof, that's so true. But so, and I say that Beatrix came to say like nothing, but like it is assumed that like she told Bloom, like
Mm-hmm.
about, which means also that Sky was there when the news was broken as well. And so like what did that look like? Like I'm really curious as like what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wish that we saw that instead of like just the like even if we had seen like Beatrix like break the news and then like there was a pan shot of like Bloom turning around to Sky and like just Sky's face. Like that would have been
Yeah.
more telling,
Right.
than just a automatic cut to all of the Wink Suite members like sitting outside of Althea. Like I think that that would have been more impactful than what we got.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody asked me. So but yeah, we do get this scene next of the Wink Suite members sitting outside as Bloom paces back and forth trying to hatch a plan to save Silva. Musa makes the comment about how going against the Solarian Guard really ups the ante on anything that they got into last term at Althea when like Stella chimes in and just simply states that no one just like goes up against like the Solarian Guard. Like you just don't do that.
Yeah.
Like not just like a like casual Wednesday morning. Like no, like you
Let's
don't
go
do it.
challenge let's go challenge
A
an armed
whole
guard.
army.
Like,
Yes.
yeah. Horrible idea.
And so they come to the terms that their idea is to break Silva out. And Stella mentions how like they can't tell Aisha because like last term like they didn't
She'll try
tw
to
her
stop
about,
us. Yeah.
yeah, like she'll like still like, yeah, Stella like assuming that Aisha hasn't grown since last term either, and like when Quite literally, Aisha was walking up to join the group and inform Stella that Bloom already told her about her intentions to break out Silva, while also reminding the group that she was the one against breaking Rosalind out last term because it was a dumb idea.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference this time is that Aisha will actually help make the plan that will not be dumb. So I
Yes.
loved that distinction because she was like, but this time you guys have got me. And like, that's good for you. Like, yes, Aisha.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but also like that look that like Bloom gives when Aisha does say that though of like, "Oh yeah, well damn, like this is all literally my fault." Like
Yeah. And that's like such an important shot too, because we really see Bloom start to ponder like that's the first time like after everything has really gone down that we see her like, oh, because like
right. And it happens over and over again in this
mhm,
episode too. Like Musa
until it
says it
blows up.
later.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
like it's crazy. Oh my gosh.
also if you
Um
listen to the music score, in
Ooh.
that part, like when they're talking about Rosalind, we hear these ominous deep chimes that we may hear again in a later episode. So
Okay.
yeah, I thought that
Shout
was really
out.
nice that there's some foreshadowing there.
Yes, I love the consistency of things like that because it does remind me of like, especially in like, and I'll always reference back to the Four Kids dub that I grew up with, but like in the
Mhm.
Four Kids dub of Winx Club, like them using the score to help progress the story along as well. Like the score wasn't
Yes.
just like present like it is in like the Ray English or the original Italian. Like it's like almost an active like part of the storytelling as well. And like we
Mhm.
see that a lot in Fate, which I really, really love. So in the next scene, we see Stella using her invisibility magic to spy on the specialists meeting with Andreas about how they are going to escort Silva to his exile. And then Andreas, in the middle of this meeting, turns to Sky. Mind you, this is this man's only son, and asks him if it will be a problem for him to escort the man who raised him and to see him in chains being shipped off to exile. Like, hello, my guy. You don't just do this in the middle of a whole freaking. There are other people present. It's not just you
Yeah.
two. Like, that is rude and disrespectful. I
As
could
if he
not.
didn't already know the answer to like,
Right.
come
Like, why is
on.
he even
Like,
why is Sky even in this meeting? Like,
mhm.
it would seem like all of these people that were involved with like all of this, but like, yeah, anyway, should be like probably on Rosalind's shit list anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Um, but so yeah, so Sky's like unconvincing answer like kind of triggers Andreas and he takes Sky off the mission. And as Sky is storming out, Beatrix kind of chimes in saying that she could be of better use for the mission anyway. And she kind of asserts herself into the conversation before calling in a roundabout way she calls Rosalind stupid, and then Andreas like dismisses the rest of the specialists for the meeting. I
And Dukin ate that up, though, I will say, when he's
yes,
like,
yes.
oh my gosh. So then we see Andreas like warn Beatrix about talking poorly of Rosalind in front of others when she's like expressing how disappointed she is that like Rosalind has treated her like a secretary and not a pupil. Um, he does seem to try to console her, calling her Little
Mhm.
Storm, which is an assumed nickname he gave to her since he did raise her in hiding for 16 years.
It's so sad, and we see like this is where like Beatrix is starting to like be established as an
Mhm.
actual likable character for me.
Yes.
Like I hated her character so much in season 1. I get like you were supposed to hate her as a character in season 1. I get that's what like the writing was doing, but like they did a good job because I did not like Beatrix at all.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like in season one too, like you don't really see it at first that, she's trying to get these answers, trying to figure out like what
Mhm.
happened over at Astrodel. And so like I think from that perspective, you can kind of see like she's after these answers and she'll do anything to get them, knowing that
Yes,
she killed
yes.
Callum. So But
Ooh. Oh, dude, I forgot she killed a man.
yeah.
Damn.
But at the same time, like being directed under, we have to think about the fact that like she's being directed by the orders of Andreas and Rosalind. And so of
Mm,
course, the way she's kind of like going after the faculty and the way she is, like this is what she's been told.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's like another side to it where it's like she's
Ugh.
kind of been a little brainwashed. So
Yes, she has, and it's really sad.
but I think she's definitely like on her own team as a character because of all of this too.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can kind of see it.
Yes.
She's kind of like the lone wolf of like all the girls here. Like she doesn't really give inherently evil vibes, but
Mm-hmm.
like because she was raised in hiding, she's so guarded and like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just like I really felt for her in this moment because like the soundtrack changes when she starts lamenting like about how things not going the way like she wanted. I noticed that like when you start to listen to it in the music, and I don't know if this was intentional, could have been, probably not, because I think the music is very different here, but the melody instrument that we hear that like kicks on when she's lamenting
Mm.
about her like grievances sounds kind of like Daphne's theme from the Italian Winx Club,
Ah! That's
right?
so cool.
Going back into like introspective about like, oh, who am I, where did I come from, like that's exactly what
Yes.
we're hearing like in the background, and I'm like,
I have
oh okay.
chills.
Yeah, it really hit me when I was watching it again. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really good. Like I don't know if it's the
Yes.
intention, but if it's not, it's like
Right.
surely a sign of fate under the sign of the Winx. Like
Ah!
just
Yes.
mind-blowing.
After this, like her exchange with Andreas, Beatrix, is left alone in the garage and she notices like these footprints in the mud, just like kind of pitter pattering away. And she like gives a little zap with electricity to the ground and it like follows the path of the footprints. And lo and behold, it is Stella. Like she uncloaks her like invisible like disguise. Um, and when Beatrix asks Stella like why she's there, obviously Stella lies and tells her that she was just looking out for Sky, even though like I wonder, like a part of me wonders like how much of that was a lie, like
Yeah.
was she really like I know she was there to like on a recon, but like was she also there to really to spy on Sky? Not spy, but like just to make sure he's okay, because like they spent a long time together. Like they grew up together basically. Like
Mhm.
wild.
Yeah, I don't think it was totally a lie on the spot because her priority was still definitely like getting the intel on the
Yes.
mission. Like she's like, well, I'm basically carrying the entire plan. Like,
She
um,
is.
I feel like that excuse was definitely believable because her breakup with Sky was very public. Her
Yes.
relationship with Sky was very public, and we know Beatrix had
Yeah.
feelings about it. So, um, I like how we get a really good shot of Beatrix like in the rain before this happens too, because like
Mhm.
you can just see the rain coming down in front of her, and she's like
Little
staring out.
storm.
Yeah, little storm.
Yeah. Crying.
Such
Oh.
a good moment. I love that they did that. But I think it's so funny that Stella was doing all that invisibility magic all over school to not get clocked for her outfit or the off-brand Crocs. And the first thing like that really comes out of like her mouth sparks Beatrix to say like, "Oh no, your shoes are
You
embarrassing. Stocking is pathetic." Like, okay.
That's such a good point.
Tara wouldn't have had an issue with Crocs. She was like, "What's wrong with Crocs?" when Stella was like going off about it. But Beatrix, God forbid you have Crocs on.
Yes.
Like,
Which is
um,
so funny. I
right.
love that.
But I think she bought the excuse from Stella. But
Mhm.
at the same time, when she started to like walk away, she's like, but like get some therapy or something. It's been months. And then she looks Stella up
Yes.
and down and she
And
goes,
then leaves.
Jesus.
Yes.
Walks away. So she's like, she did everything that Stella was going invisible for. Like she was trying to avoid all of
In
that.
one
And
moment.
yeah, she just
Just
knocked it all out of the park. So also, we don't know if Beatrix really snitches on Stella or not here,
Ooh.
but
Yes.
there, I guess we have to kind of like see how it unfolds over a few episodes. and I don't know if we really get like a direct answer to that, but like I
Yeah.
do think, it could be something to keep an eye out for. So,
I mean, if she portrays so many people, and like you were saying, like she really is playing like for her own team. Like
mhm.
Beatrix is team Beatrix and no one else.
Quite
Not even really
literally.
Andreas. Like she'll do anything to like portray these people just so that she in the end it's what she wants. And I think that we see that time and time again in this season. So I think that it is safe to assume that she did snitch on because she be
Mhm.
doing that. She be doing that the whole
Yes.
season. It's like, what are
Yes.
you talking about? You're not a snitch. Yes, you
Mhm.
are. You literally like I mean, yeah, like later in the season. Like I think like in the
Mhm.
next episode. Like
Yeah.
oh my god.
So after Stella's little recon mission, Aisha is going to get Musa so they can like devise a plan to break Silva out when she runs into Musa chatting with Gray.
Ooh!
We find out that Gray is Sam's roommate and that Musa is,
Convenient.
yeah, right. And that Musa's reading Aisha's feelings for him. Like she's channeling her magic and like,
Mhm.
picking up on kind of what's going on right there. I'm sure I
Yep.
would love to have known what they had said prior to her getting there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Aisha encourages Musa to stop when she playfully threatens to drown her, and then the two head off to meet the others to devise their plan to like break Silva out.
Yeah. I love this because it's so funny, like, the parallel of, like, season 1 and 2 here, like, with
Yes.
Musa and Sam and now Aisha and Gray, like, it's just so cute. It's really cute, and I think that they captured, like, the awkward, like, teenager, like, relationships, like, I think that they
Hmm.
captured it really well.
Like Aisha is so by the books and like, or
Yes.
like, the teacher's pet. Like, I guess that's what Stella said once, but like,
Yes.
it's such a good parallel too because Gray is so like comedic and confident and funny, and
Mhm.
he's just calling her like, "Oh, Hawk girl, like, what's up? Like, I'm gonna be auditioning some new
Hawk
speedos
girl.
later if you want to come by."
Oh
Like,
my god. For the longest, literally since this aired, I thought that he said hot girl instead of hawk girl.
yeah.
I until I watched it with the subtitles on, I was like, he said hawk girl. That makes
Yeah.
so much more sense. I was like, damn, he's calling her hawk girl. That's like bold.
But yeah, that hawk,
Oh.
pay attention to it because this is not the last time we'll see it. So yeah,
Ooh.
there's a little bit of prickliness that comes up later, obviously, but there's more
Prickliness.
to that. So
Ooh, damn. I'm excited. So back in the Wing Suite, all five girls are cooking up their jailbreak for Saul Silva the next day. As Aisha is presenting the plans, each Winx Suite member claims their roles in each phase. Musa is present to detect any suspicion among the guards, while Aisha floods the engines of their caravan, and Stella is to use her invisibility magic to secure the keys and release Silva. Confident in their plan, Tara is just like smiling at the group and presents them a moment to like revel in the fact that they all have each other and that no matter how bad things get at Althea, that here in the Wink Suite, they're good. And I think that this is such a beautiful moment, and like Tara
right.
is such a sweet and wholesome character and such a loving friend. Like she loves her friends,
She really
and like
does.
it's
Like
like
she can be
so
overbearing at
genuine.
times, but like
It
she really
comes from
cares about the
such a
people
good
around her.
place.
Yeah, like she's such a
Yes.
sweetheart.
Oh,
She's too good for that sometimes,
she
I
is. She
swear.
is.
But at the same time, like I can't imagine this group without her because like
Right.
yeah,
They
she really
needed
is
that.
the glue in a way, like,
Mhm.
and I love that. They all are really, but
Mhm.
the banter in the suite here too is just it's so playful, it's so
It's
fun.
really
Like
cute.
they're not all like BFFs, but they're all friends. They're all coming together, and I
Mhm.
love that. And it really solidifies like a new direction for these girls working as a team, which is
Yes.
so important for a mission like this. Oh my gosh. Um,
Absolutely.
I feel like Fate is a little bit more grounded in kind of like a realistic portrayal of like a dynamic like this. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it's not as idealized as like the Winx Club animated series,
Mm-hmm.
or even, well, I feel like even the comics are a little bit between both of those, but like
Yeah.
I will say that like I think both are great, especially like the aspirational model of like feminine
Mm-hmm.
unity that we see in the cartoon,
Yes.
where they instantly click and there's a little bit of conflict, but it's not like
Mm-hmm. It was resolved
they're
by the
not
end of
so
the
distant.
episode. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Exactly.
but I like how in Fate there's like more of a gradual evolution
Mm-hmm.
on how these
It's earned.
strangers, yes, they, from different
Yes.
backgrounds, they come together and through their shared experiences and challenges and just like their connections with each other and connections as an overall group, like
Mm-hmm.
it really is constantly changing and it's not always perfect, but they make it work. And I love that. I love that so
Yes.
much.
Oh,
So
absolutely. And I think that to your point of like it feels like a more realistic approach to friendship, and like I have been like saying that since like season 1. Like I know
yes.
that like Faye like got a bad rep of like they're all just mean to each other. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
they're
have you
not even
seen
friends.
Winx Club?
Like, yeah.
Have you seen Winx Club season 1?
Hmm.
Like Winx Club season 1, they're all mean to each other.
Yes, the
Like
snarky
for real
remarks.
though, the snarky remarks,
Yeah.
like them like just like absolutely like bodying someone for no reason. Like
Hmm.
it is
For
insane.
sure.
Like
And I
I
feel like the
just
4 Kids dub is a little bit nicer too compared to the like the Rye dub. The
yes,
Rye dub is Stella going off on Flora in season 2. Like,
brutal.
yeah. So
And like Flora, or no, Stella biting Flora's hand. Like
yes, yes. Like, you
there's
don't bite your
so
friends.
much. Yeah, don't
So
literally don't bite your friends. Yo Gabba Gabba taught you nothing. Oh my god, that's so
uh,
funny. Yeah, so like at least there's none of that in Fate. Like yeah, like
right.
Fate like it's a slow burn for sure, but like I think I like it better that way because like you said it is more realistic, and like it makes me like think of like the friends that like you had to go on a journey with to appreciate each other,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like that's what we have in Fate, and
Like showing
I
up to
love
college and
it.
getting roommates, like I feel like, yeah,
Yes.
a
There
great
are
example
roommates
of
that you
that.
just don't like sometimes, and that's
Hmm.
okay.
Yes,
That's all right. You don't all gotta instantly click like immediately. Like it's
for
okay.
sure.
It's actually normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at night, Rosalind mysteriously visits the east wing of the school where she seems to be conducting all sorts of experiments? Question mark. We don't
Spooky
know, but the next,
experiments.
yeah, spooky. There's like a bunch of bottles, and she's got like this like weird like book that she has under her arm and whatever. But the next morning, Beatrix brings up like all these rumors and incriminating facts surrounding like the mysterious Rosalind, and she brings it up like to her face. Like Rosalind like asked her like what are the people saying like about me? Like what are they saying?
Yeah.
And like Rosalind confirms like Beatrix's fear that like she does not intend to include her in any of this important like stuff that Rosalind has planned, and she doesn't see her as an asset really, which is
Hmm.
not at all how Beatrix saw this playing out. Like
Yeah.
it's really sad to see the realization on Beatrix's face, especially when like Rosalind tells the guy that's cleaning up the graffiti in the hall like Beatrix can do the rest. Like
Hmm. When she
that.
keeps digging, like trying to like
Mhm.
get on, she's like, well, all these fairies have started to go missing since you got here. Like keeping secrets from me is like objectively
Objectively stupid
stupid and a
and a
waste of my
waste of my
talent.
talent.
Yes. Like, oh, Sadie Soberall, she's so good. Like,
She's really good. Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, like that's a really good example because she hears all that and she still says like no girl, like
You
go
don't
clean
know
up
what
this
you're
graffiti.
missing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Oof.
and
That's
that
yeah.
you can see it on her face there that she's done by the end of that. Like she's definitely, or well, Beatrix, she's
Anti
like,
Rosalind.
Mhm.
She's like,
But
I'm
I think
taking this
she's
bitch down.
yeah, but
Yeah.
she's still looking for an end too. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
in her head, the wheels are still turning. So,
Mm-hmm.
also
For
the
sure.
graffiti on the wall, like
What did it
it
say?
said "Uck Rosalind." So we can, I'm pretty sure it's not yuck, but like I thought that was
Yuck.
so funny.
Yuck, Rosalind.
Yeah.
Ew. Ew, David. Ew, Rosalind.
But yeah, he's like scrubbing off the first letter. I'm like, oh my
That is
gosh.
so
But
funny. I didn't even notice that before.
really good. You should go back and check it out because it's
Oh
it's
my
funny.
god.
But when she entered the back room of the lab before that scene took place, we don't know what she's looking at when she's like in the very back, but we can hear a rattling noise. So
Mm-hmm.
like, it's kind of like foreshadowing, like, oh, what's the
It
mystery
really
back here?
is.
Like she's hiding
Yes.
something
I know. Yeah, Rosalind is super sketch, like
for
in this
real.
first episode for real.
So elsewhere, Sky is in his dorm, underage day drinking. Like that's assuming that there's like a minimum drinking age in the other world, of course.
Yes.
um, as he recounts a painful conversation he had with his biological father regarding the sword Saul Silva gave to Sky when he
Ooh.
was little, claiming that, it was Andreas's sword. Andreas refuses the sword that Sky might have meant as sort of like an olive branch to finally start to form, some kind of bond with his biological
Mhm.
dad when he tells Sky that it's not even his sword.
Emotional damage.
Oh my gosh. So he's probably even more angry at Silva at this
No,
point.
for
Like
real.
lying about this sword.
Yes.
Like, what's the deal with that? It does come up later though. We do get a good resolution for this, but for
We
right now,
do.
Sky's pissed. Like he is not happy at all. When Bloom comes to check on Sky, she kind of like lets it slip that I think he actually clocks it before she lets it slip,
Oh,
but
that's
like
true. Yeah.
yeah, that she's going on a mission to break out Silva. Like Sky's like, you know what? Okay,
Don't tell
unimpressed.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sky tries to like tell Bloom that like he's not worth the trouble that, these girls are all going through to do all of
Mhm.
this. But Bloom being Bloom, she's just gonna do it anyways. Like,
Yes, yes.
and I think
I
he
know.
recognized that too, because like
Mhm.
I love the cinematic parallels, obviously with Sky drinking, I think it was like scotch or whiskey or something in the window
Yeah, it was
to
definitely
like,
whiskey, yeah.
yeah, I like the cinematic cuts of like the back and forth flashback, but I also like how like he figured out Bloom's plans without her even saying anything, and he also
Mhm.
recognized that he knows her well enough that he
Yes.
could not stop her. That,
Ah!
I love that. He's not gonna like try to like force his girlfriend to like not
Mhm.
go, like, or like,
But we do see this again later.
mm-hmm.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have my heart just sank so much.
Yeah. So
No!
this is just the first instance of this, but it is not the worst.
Oh.
Yeah, oh, that's such a good point. I didn't even think about that, Lola. Like,
Oh no! Ah.
uh,
Crying in the club right now.
that's what we get for going so deep into this.
I
Like,
know, I
like
know.
hurts even more. But
It does.
I'm also glad that like she recognized that Sky needed Silva, even if he wasn't willing to
Mhm.
like admit it out loud to her.
Right.
So
Yeah, or even like realizes it himself at this point because he's just like
mhm.
so blinded by his like rage, and like he's mad. This boy
Yeah.
is mad.
Circling back to that whole thing about like the drinking age, we
Mhm.
do know that like they are like underage drinking here. But in the Winx Club comics, the drinking age may actually be 16 because at the end of the year party in comic number 12, which is called Moonlight, it's like
Yes.
recapping the end of the year season 1 like party event.
Mhm.
Sky actually gets drunk and the girls are like, I think Sky
Ah!
had too much to drink. He's saying some silly stuff. Like, and then on top of that,
Oh.
Bloom works at a restaurant called the White Horse, where she does serve alcoholic drinks and sometimes even makes them.
Yes.
So I just thought that that was like a good little thing to point out though, because
Mhm.
like it's not so unusual. Because like I heard one of the big critiques of Fate is like, oh, they've introduced like drinking and smoking and things like that, and a lot of
It's
that's
like,
all throughout these. It's just
yeah,
done
it's
in a
like
different
it's
way.
totally. So as the Wink Suite members, sans Stella, so it's just Bloom, Musa, Aisha, and Tara. They're all piling into Tara's father's car when Bloom asks where Stella is, and then like at that moment, Aisha receives a text. Only it's not from Stella. It's
No.
from Gray. So immediately Aisha's asking questions. Musa, like if she's like asking Musa like if she knows anything about this. And so like in this moment, like the car breaks into chaos. Bloom and Tara are up front in the front seat of the car, just like wanting more details, while like in the back seat, Musa is just trying to explain to Aisha before Aisha completely loses her shit that like she's just trying to return the favor, like for Aisha introducing Musa to Sam last term. So like there's just like this whole car scene was so incredibly cute. Like
I loved
I
it.
I absolutely loved it. It was it's what I wish we had more of
Yeah, for sure.
in this series. Like I wish we just had more of them like being cute, goofy teenagers. Like I wanted more of that in
And when
Fate.
we
I
get
wish
it,
we
it's like it's great.
it's such a
So
cute little, yeah. Like the last scene, well, not the last scene, but the second to last scene in the season 1. Like it, like being just like a cute like time at Bloom's Earth house,
eating
like
pizza,
it,
like
yes, just like
yes,
making each other laugh, getting to like that's just like so sweet. I want more of that. Like
for
I feel
sure.
like because like the actresses of Fate were all actual friends and would go and do stuff all together
Yeah,
anyway, like we got that kind of like behind the scenes, but like I wish we got it in Fate, like actually.
right. I love that, like in that shot too, like when Aisha starts like freaking out, you can see Musa's eyes like divert out the window. Like she's just like,
She's like, oh
don't be mad at
yes.
me. But and then, the banter happens. And I just think it's so funny though that like she gave it, she actually says she gave it to Sam, who then gave it to Gray,
Right. So
which
technically.
is nice. Yeah.
Yes.
But I love how when she was on the sky bridge, you can actually see that she channeled into Aisha and like was,
Mhm.
reading her emotions. And she had like a smug look on her face. And so it was kind of given that this was gonna happen. But
Yeah.
it really is such a good parallel though to the season 1, like, moment of Musa and
Yes.
Sam and Aisha throwing her
I
to the
love it.
wolves. So
Right. Yeah. And like when you like give that like explanation, like yeah, that makes sense. Like duh.
yeah.
Like you literally did this to me so last term. Like don't be like so hurt about it. Like chill
And
out,
don't act like you
Aisha.
don't like this guy. I read your thoughts.
Yes,
Like,
like
yeah.
chill, girl. You're not fooling anybody. So meanwhile, Stella is late for their little jailbreak mission due to Rosalind calling her into her office to reprimand her for using invisibility magic against her mother's wishes. Wouldn't you know it, Stella? You're not as slick as you think you are.
Right.
So Stella asks if Rosalind is going to call the queen to punish her when Rosalind says that she doesn't need to, and demands like Stella to like take off the cardigan that she's, got on, because she's about to place this extremely painful device onto Stella that will prevent her from using her like aspects of her light magic to turn invisible, but also it'll keep her on the school grounds, which I thought was an interesting little like addendum there to the,
Yeah,
like the what all this little gem does. Absolutely insane. Yeah.
truly. Like that scene was like honestly gut-wrenching to watch. Like not only was Stella like visibly scared, but like Rosalind, like they're such good actresses back and forth right there. Like
Yes.
so good. Like it's so intense. Like I like Stella's expressions, for example, like her face, like she was just like looking like what's going
Like
on
I'm
here?
so
Like
confused.
there's
Yeah.
no way you're actually gonna make me take off my jacket. And
Yeah,
she's
like I'm
like,
the princess of Soleil. Like
yeah,
no one of authority has ever talked to Stella like this. And you
hmm
can tell, you
yeah.
know? Yeah.
So something to take note of too is that when Rosalind's reading all the timestamps off in sequential order,
Mm.
she mentions that the list goes on after the stairs incident, which the only other incident that we saw
Mm-hmm.
was in the garage.
Ooh.
And Beatrix is
Ooh.
still looking for an in for Rosalind.
Ooh.
And so when we see the
Yes.
device planted in Stella's back, we actually get a shot cut away to Beatrix in the next room, like
Mm-hmm.
right as you walk into the office, and she looks so
Oh.
guilty. Like she
No,
like
dude, you're
looks
so
up.
right though.
Yes.
No,
And
she
I was just
absolutely
like,
snitched. No, for
mhm.
sure.
I think so too. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, like we don't know for sure, but I think she snitched. I swear she snitched. Yeah, it's just something to think about
Absolutely.
too. Like as the
Yeah.
season progresses with the other events of snitching, like
I also want to point out too, like the Shabstone that Rosalind is using here, like we all pretty much clocked that in the early teaser trailer of this season when
yeah,
like there were Fate and Winx accounts alike like reposting the screenshots of the stone from the Winx comics and its likeness to this gem that Rosalind is now placing on Stella's shoulder. Like it's I mean,
uncanny. Like
yeah, well, no, absolutely. Like it's so apparent that this season is so different in so many ways that
mhm.
like it was apparent to even like the fans that didn't like the show, you know?
Yeah.
Like people that had never seen Fate were posting about this scene because they're like, "Oh, well, like
Yeah.
maybe they do like, like do their research. Maybe they do check their source materials. Like they do. And like the more and more you watch it, like the more you pick up on those and you realize and really and this might be controversial and I don't mean this to be directed towards literally anybody, but I think that a lot of the people that do enjoy Winx for what it is do really know the source material well
Yes,
enough
we do.
to notice those things. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like so like us like and you don't even have to like deep dive like we are for
Mhm.
these episodes to notice some of these things. And so I think that you just got to have like an open heart and mind.
Yeah,
Wow.
for sure. That's like
close close your eyes and open your heart.
or open your eyes and
Open
open
your
your
heart,
mind,
open your mind.
like
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's something like that goes into a greater thing too about Fate. I feel like there was a lot of talk about like how this show is just Netflix pulling a Riverdale or something like that, but we also
Yeah,
have to
playing off
remember
of
that
people's like nostalgia baiting. And it's like,
yeah, and there's
no.
a lot of like yeah, there's a lot of like misunderstanding about how this even came about. Like Rainbow commissioned this series because
Mm.
people wanted something like this. Like
Yes.
of course people wanted a live action Winx Club, but there was also demand for like a more YA show like, Teen Wolf and the Vampire
Yes.
Diaries. I remember being in English, no, I was in health class when I was thinking to myself watching Teen Wolf, oh, that'd be so cool if Winx was like that. And
You were watching you
here
were
we
watching
go.
wait, you were watching Teen Wolf in health class?
Well, we were done with our work, but like I was maladaptive daydreaming too. So I was just
That's
in
true.
my own
That's true.
mind, like, yeah. But
That's funny.
yeah, like it's not as random as people think it is, though. I think there's definitely rhyme and
Right.
reason to this series. So
Totally.
once they realize Stella is a no-show, Bloom and the others decide to go on ahead without Stella and come up with a new plan as they go. They get to the river bend, and Bloom ventures off to investigate a burned down bridge. Aisha is very off kilter with the change of plans and is, expressing her anxiety, wanting to call off the plan,
Mhm.
entirely. But when Musa uses her magic to take off the edge from Aisha's
Mm.
nervous energy, she calms down. Taking
Mhm.
notice of what just happened, Tara questions Musa's moral compass when it comes down to her like empathetic abilities as a mind fairy. Bloom stumbles across the ruins, to which a crow flies by and scares her. I didn't notice that at
Mm.
first, but then rewatching it,
Yeah.
I noticed the crow and I was like, oh, there's
Oh.
something there. She takes a closer look and returns a sample of purplish pink congealed blood, which
Ugh.
I think we can assume is from, the attack on Devon in that same
Mhm.
area,
Yes.
before Aisha finalizes the plan and they take off to execute the breakout plan. I think we definitely have to talk about the fact that like Musa using her magic like that is such a bad
Oh
idea.
my gosh. Yes. Like I get I understand how Musa they I understand her reasoning though,
Hmm.
right? She's finally found what she believes is a good use of her power. She's always like like the first season was her struggling so much with like how is this a blessing? How is this a good power to have? Like
Yeah.
this has got to be like the worst element to like possess. Like she's like struggling with that. So like this season she's found a way because she was able to take all of Sam's pain to help him through the last season, you know, like so that he even like is alive. So she was like, "Oh, my powers can be good. I can help people."
Yes.
And so the
Yeah.
way that she's helping people is so misguided because of that, and so it's just so
It's
sad.
it really is
It's
a
so
spiral of
sad.
events, and it only
Yes.
continues because like Tara like does say like she's kind of worried about that. Like
Mhm.
she takes note of that. It's like it's not really a good idea. And that kind of goes back to Musa running into the plant in the hall. You know, she's starting to clash with Tara
Mm.
now. Here we
Oh,
go.
okay,
And
Dave.
so like um and I know it sounds like
That's
a stretch
funny.
to some.
That's
Like I'm sure somebody will hear that and they'll be like, "Oh, Dane, that's such a stretch." But it's so true that like they use a lot of foreshadowing in this show. Like
Mhm.
especially with the crow that Bloom,
Mhm.
gets spooked by under the bridge. That did not come out of like that wasn't naturally there. That was added to
No.
the scene. Like that was,
Yes.
put there intentionally by somebody. And so in the Celtic otherworld mythology, which is like kind of what Fate is based off of, crows
Yeah.
and ravens are often associated with death, mystery, and transformation.
Ah!
But they're
Ah!
also associated with an ancient goddess of war and fate named Morrigan.
Stop it.
No,
Stop.
it gets better.
What?
The going gets better. She's often depicted as being surrounded by crows or as multiple crows, and then it's the Morrigan, but she's known to foreshadow doom, death, or victory in battle. So, without saying too much, the goddess like will definitely get brought up again at a later point because there is a character that is very reminiscent of this kind of depiction
Ooh.
or this ancient goddess. Um,
Yeah.
but cue to the jailbreak scene in action. We get the Halsey track in the background called I Am Not a Woman, I'm a God.
Yes.
So I love that. I love
Wait.
that so much.
Yes. I have chills. That is so
Right?
good.
There's and it's just one little moment, but it's such a meaningful like sign. It's an omen. The crow is an omen.
Yes. Oh my
So
God. The Swifties would go feral for this. I
right.
mean,
They need me on
oh
that
my
team.
God.
Like
Yes. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. That's absolutely insane, actually. At the same time, meanwhile, back on the ranch, Sam and Professor Harvey are discussing Rosalind's recent demands for materials from the greenhouse. And Sam, again, is frustrated with Rosalind's lack of transparency and demands to know why they are spending their off hours gathering these herbs for her. And he's also emphasizing that like Sam and the other staff are already like overworked and like stressed from dealing with all these hurt students every day, and that Rosalind's like secretive demands are only adding, you know, to their burdens. And so at that moment, Rosalind enters the greenhouse and announces that she needs the room with Harvey, when Sam like sarcastically mutters underneath his breath, like, "Of course you do." And Rosalind overhears Sam, of course, like I don't think that he was trying to hide it that well.
mm-mm.
You know,
He
and like
wanted her to
she
hear that.
oh
Like
no, absolutely. And so she turns to him and like gives him this warning to watch his tongue, and she threatens to investigate like who like was responsible for the graffiti, which like at that point we're then like are led to believe that it was like Sam, you know, and so she threatens to investigate that and implies that like she is prepared to expel anyone who challenges her authority. So Sam like immediate like intimidated by this threat, like, you know, silently exits the greenhouse. And it's just like I don't know, like it's adding to like the tension with Sam's character. And
for sure.
really sad,
Also, the way she
honestly.
says that too, she was like, I
Mm.
haven't expelled anyone in a while. I'm
Mm.
overdue or I'm due. It's like,
Oh,
wow.
it's a
Okay, so
lot.
she's got a tongue too. Like,
Yeah, no, for real. Yes, I don't like. I like I said, I hate Rosalind.
yeah,
I know you're
she's
supposed to.
menacing.
Yeah, she's menacing. I know you're supposed to hate her, but like, oh my god, it's just like awful. It's so
For sure.
bad.
But it's such an important scene that like we get to see this
Mhm.
because it really shows like a turning point for Sam. Like his frustration
Yeah.
has to be building at this point.
Mhm.
Also Professor Harvey, like you can tell he's stressed out
Yeah.
too. And so, that does play into what happens later.
Totally.
Because they're so overworked and Althea wasn't like this when Pharaoh was the headmistress.
I do want to
Oh yeah.
also like point out and say that like I absolutely hate that they don't have a true infirmary in Fate's like vision for Althea like they do in Winx Club. Like I really really wish they had spent just a little more time truly like building out Althea's structure and like made it feel like a real school, like I
Yeah.
get that it's supposed to be like this like pseudo military school, especially like once Rosalind's now taken over. But like even a military school needs an infirmary. Like,
Yeah.
hello? Like this greenhouse should not be used in this way. Like it's giving broke. It's giving like they didn't have the budget to hire a nurse. Like it's one of my biggest beefs with like the like Fate and how badly they fumbled like setting up Althea. Like and making it feel believable, making it feel real.
Yeah.
Like Althea like has like 4 rooms. Dowling's office, the main like courtyard, cafeteria, banquet hall, pep rally hall, whatever that place is, like whatever it needs to be for them, I guess. The Wink suite, like, and then like the one classroom, I guess 5 rooms, and then the greenhouse. Like, cool. Like this
Yeah.
whole big castle. Like, what's
The
the
dorm
rest of the
hallways.
castle?
Yeah. It's
Dorms?
like
Yeah, yeah.
that's pretty much it.
Like, oh my
So
god. Like, I just wish that it was uh, I don't know. I feel like there could have been more energy spent around that.
for sure. I think it makes sense in a way, but also they could have done a full infirmary, like because like if you're in the greenhouse and you have all these natural herbs on you, obviously like Zanback and all that, when you need to administer that, it's right
Mhm.
there. But the greenhouse was pretty, but it wasn't like the Winx Club greenhouse.
No,
So
and it wasn't and like, like they had they had I guess they didn't have the staff for an infirmary, like they only have like
yeah.
3 people that work the whole school, so
Yeah.
oh, it's
I'm sure it's
embarrassing.
not easier when Rosalind's over there too, like, getting rid of
Right.
people. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Oh
but
my
I can tell
god.
like Sam working in his off hours in there, I'd be stressed out too. I'm not surprised
Mhm.
he's so
Oh, he is
burnt
on
out and
edge.
angry. Yeah.
Yeah. So back with the Winx suite members, Aisha's new plan miraculously works out, and despite Andreas like literally shooting Silva with several arrows in the back, Silva jumps into the river and is able to make it out alive thanks to Aisha giving Silva like this little like breathing bubble with her magic. Ah,
Oh,
I love
yes.
it. I love that so much. And
Same.
so after Andreas and the rest of the caravan transporting Silva gives up on their search, the Wink Suite members meet Silva at the riverbank where they decide like where to go next, like what's the next plan of action when Silva tells them that he's got a friend in Blackbridge, which is the town outside of Althea, where he'll be safe for a while. And so they take him off to Blackbridge.
I love this. I love this little scene with Silva at the end of the riverbank because,
Yes.
like, number one, before it happened, Riven was acknowledging like how screwed up the transfer was.
Mm-hmm.
And like Dane was saying that like he doesn't have any doubts about it, but clearly Riven did. And
Yes.
I'm glad that we got to see that because it shows that Riven's
Has a
in his
moral
right mind.
compass.
Yeah, he
Yes,
has a moral
yes.
compass. Meanwhile, Dane is not doubtful because of like, he's blindly trusted Beatrix for so long because she's like never questioned who he is and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has no doubts. And so that's why he's so comfortable, like
Yeah.
like basically tossing Silva off to the frozen north and not thinking about it ever
Right.
again.
Right.
Plus, he doesn't really like Silva after the whole thing first, during his first interaction where he's like
That's
musty.
true
Yeah,
though.
the thing about him
Yeah.
calling him soft, so, or
Oof.
coming from a place where he can be so soft.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I like this whole scene, and I like that we get to see Aisha's like underwater breath bubble, like just like we just see it into the frame. It surprises us, and
Yes.
I love that so much
Ugh.
because it was just so organic, and it's such a throwback to season 5, which
And
like
3, honestly,
yes,
too.
yes, when she would go
Yes.
underwater and breathe.
Ah.
So I did like that. I thought it was really sweet, and I love the
Mm-hmm.
action-packed suspense and the pacing here. Also the riverbank moment where Silva was like, "That's the most careless thing you girls have ever done." Yes.
Captain Musa.
And then they all just jump in and they're like, "Weren't you here last
Oh,
term?"
yes.
Like when
When
Bloom went
Bloom
full fairy.
released.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's
Oh
too
my
good.
god. Yes.
So, and
I
that's
love
another
that.
great moment, like the unity there, like
Mm-hmm.
just the unity of all of them together,
So
playfully chiming
sweet.
in off of each other. So they take Saul to his friend Sebastian's store titled Sebastian's First World Goods, where he appears to sell items from Earth. In his backroom apartment, Sebastian helps Saul settle in, cracking jokes while also carefully examining what Andreas and the gang has done to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like staring at his face and like seeing kind of like what's going on. Really watch his eyesight in this shot because
Yes. Yeah.
um yeah, he's going through it all. But Bloom nervously is in the front of the shop giving Sky an update on her phone, talking about how like, or
It'd
actually,
be
let me see if I
best.
can,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Bloom nervously gives Sky an update on the phone using the front room, saying that like it would be best to come down, tomorrow morning. But she's a little hesitant because she knows what he's gonna say after she
Yeah.
says that. And he
Yeah.
makes it clear he does not want to see Silva, even like
Mm-hmm.
though he's happy it worked out and that she's okay and she got what she wanted. He doesn't want to
Mm-hmm.
see him. So, and
Yeah.
then we briefly cut away to the specialist like unloading the convoy vehicles at the garage where Riven gives Sky a rundown of what
Yes.
happened. He's like, okay, here's the good news, but also like we don't know where he is.
Right.
He's not dead. We just don't know where he is, or he might not be dead. Like,
Right. Ugh.
yeah. But then Sky overhears Dane across the yard bragging
Mm-hmm.
about it to all the other specialists, like talking about shooting Silva with arrows and how awesome that was. Of course, his vendetta against Silva. But
Mm-hmm.
Sky overhears this and like calls him out, like saying, "Hey, like that's not a funny joke. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
relax." And Dane's like telling him to just chill out. And so then, like, when Sky steps up to the plate, Dane's like, "I think we both remember what happened last time," talking about their previous
Mm.
sparring incident. And when he goes to turn and laugh, Sky just like punches him. He goes in on him.
I
Um,
gasped when I rewatched this. I
yes,
forgot that happened. I was like, oh damn.
right.
Oh.
I was expecting Riven and Sky to fight before Dane and
I
Riven, or Dane and
know.
Sky. Like, yeah.
Oh, I
So
know. Oh my
it was
gosh.
crazy. It was wild. Truly a
Yeah.
wild fight. But what's great about it too is that like we get a shot of Andreas where he scoffs a little bit. He's like, "Oh, okay, he kind of is my son." Like,
I hate that part. I hate it so much.
I know it's awful,
I
but
love
like
Kenduken, but I hate Andreas.
he's just
So funny.
okay, so back at Sebastian's shop, Bloom apologizes to Saul for Sky's behavior, to which he kind of like figures, he'll come around. She inquires about Dowling, but Saul is like completely unaware of her
Hmm.
whereabouts. And he assures her, though, that like Sebastian is really good at finding people. Bloom asks if she's just supposed to like return to Althea and act as if everything is normal. Like she's really concerned
Hmm.
about it too, and she says it. But Silva warns her that like Rosalind's presence alters the situation and like pretending that everything is normal will only allow for Rosalind to exploit Bloom's vulnerability
Ooh.
and like get in her head. And she'll forget about like what normal was like. Saul reveals that Rosalind now has access to the royal archives, which contain ancient texts and powerful relics, which is just like the, Althea archives of like,
Yes. But also the Solarian too, because like wasn't it like Solarian like archives like Stella in the third season like requested access to. Am I making
Oh,
this up
I don't know.
to help Bloom? Because like that's when like she brought Bloom to like the observatory.
Maybe.
You
I don't
know
know.
what
I'd
I'm
have to go
talking
back and
about?
check, but
I
I do
know,
remember
yeah,
the
me too.
observatory. So I wouldn't be surprised
Yes.
if Solaria had like a library too as a
Yes.
kingdom. So
You're right, yeah.
Bloom frantically blames herself for releasing Rosalind. Like she feels so guilty here. Like just,
And she
cool.
should. It is
Yeah.
her whole fault.
hmm Believing it to be the root cause of the turmoil at Althea, which it is. Like, I mean,
It
she did
is.
do this, but Silva does reassure her that if it wasn't her to have done it, somebody else would have eventually done it. He asserts that like whatever Rosalind is up to, it
Mm,
started 17 years ago and it started with Bloom, and that should be the focus of this rather than Bloom like blaming herself. Yeah,
yes. Yes,
because
yes,
that's the
yes.
problem at hand, like that's what they have to
Mhm.
solve. And I love the fact that Bloom is processing what she's done here a second time,
Mhm.
but like really processing kind of what's going on now in the moment versus like at
Yep.
the end of season one when she was in Dowling's office saying like I've been a brat, and like that was like one thing, but this is a whole other kind of moment right now. And so I
Yes.
like that she's also trying to find a way to make it right, because
Ugh.
it's one thing to apologize for something, but it's another to
Mhm.
really like try to make things right, not just for like the betterment of like you, but like for everybody else around you.
Yes,
So
because she is, struck with guilt. Like she's like riddled with it. She
mhm.
she knows this is her fault. Everyone is in this crappy situation because of her. And so it is so much like the character of Bloom as we know Bloom from the Winx Club to like
Yeah,
make it right,
yeah,
Like and I really like, commend the writers for like picking up on that like true like virtue of Bloom as a character and like
for
because
sure.
it's her. It is Bloom.
Yeah,
And I love it.
and she's much more impulsive in Fate too, which I think a lot of people would call like Bloom in the animated series a Mary Sue. I heard that a lot, but like in Fate she seems to
Yeah.
be more impulsive,
She's
which gives her a character flaw. Like,
Yeah, she's more aligned with like the four kids take on Bloom than she
yeah,
is with like the Ray or like original version of Bloom, I think, because like yeah, like she is kind of like a cinnamon rolly type of character in like the Ray English or even the original Italian, but like in the four kids dub she is that fiery hothead like
yeah,
she will pop off and like step up to anyone that like disses her or her friends. Like she she is that person. And so like in Fate, them picking up on that as well is like huge. Like
for
I love
sure.
that take on Bloom. Like that is my Bloom.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
totally. So, and it's just such a good fit, obviously the fiery energy and like fire magic, like
Hmm.
cliche, but it does fit well. So this moment too is like kind of the blow up from what we saw with Bloom kind of like processing what was going on with Rosalind on the lawn with the
Yes.
girls.
Yeah,
So,
like from the lawn to Musa's comment on the riverbank to
mhm.
now like it's just been building this whole episode,
Yeah,
like and even like her like after her conversation at the beginning of the episode with Rosalind in her office, like Bloom like frantically like trying to she's talking to Aisha about like how am I gonna fix this basically, so like this whole time, yeah, it's like it's coming to a head like here in like Sebastian's shop and like these poor men are probably like is she okay?
yeah.
Like they've not been here to see like this like slow burn progression of like how much is like weighing on her that we have.
And that's another thing too. Like the people only know like what they've seen. You only know what you know, and
Yes.
that's a big thing in this show. So,
Ooh, that's so true. That is so true. Speaking of only knowing what you know, Stella back in the Wink suite is visibly upset and like shaken up. She's, in the suite removing her makeup from the day when she is immediately confronted by concerns as Aisha, Tara, and Musa enter the lounge. And despite their initial like frustration at her sudden disappearance, from their grand plan to break out Saul, Musa is feeling like something's, off. you just like shout out mind fairies. She's channeling her magic and tells the other girls to like wait until they know the full story. And
Yeah.
so Stella reveals that Rosalind intercepted her, that she, wasn't as discreet as she thought she was, like with her invisibility magic. And the girls worry, like, we see it like kind of start to deepen as Stella is speaking about this. But Stella tries to downplay it, and saying like she was merely like given a warning, whatever. It doesn't really go into much more details there, but she does mention to Musa to try to like kind of like take the pressure off her and like to kind of like divert the attention. She mentions to Musa that she has a visitor, clearly breaking the no boyfriends in the suite rule, but like I guess we'll let it
Right.
slide for now.
Right. I think there's bigger fish to fry here. Like, yeah.
Yes.
And so I thought that that was like such a major setback for her though, because like she was doing so
Mhm.
well, and you can see it on her face when she's taking her makeup off. She is like so
Mhm.
drained. Like she looks like she's just been like
Yes.
crying. And obviously that thing looked painful.
Oh
Like,
yeah, she's in like physical pain, emotional pain. Like it's probably hella embarrassing. She is the princess of Solaria, and
yeah,
she's got this tracker on her back. Like that's
a
embarrassing.
leash. Yeah, it's
Yes.
awful. So, but yeah, like I thought that was so sad to see. Like she was doing so
Hmm.
well, and now she's not going to tell the
Yeah,
girls that she has this in her bag.
I know. I know. Does she ever?
It comes
Eventually,
out,
she
but
does.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's insane. But so Musa, upon entering her room, is confronted by a very like irritated, agitated Sam, who immediately demands like, "Where have you been?" Like it's just
Yeah.
like really sad because you can see it on his face. I love this character. Like Sam was such a good addition and like such a good partner for Musa. And I hate that like they diminished him to like this in this season, because he was such a good character. And I know why they did it. It's fan service. They just wanted to get Riven and Musa together as soon as they could, like get them out of the way. Like we get it, but like
Yeah.
I'm still mad about it. But so she briefly like channels her magic to like sense that he has like just like all these intense emotions like building up in him, and she like tells him to calm down. And, as he rests his head on her shoulders, he apologizes and like he's like just unloads, all of these like feelings that he's feeling about his dad and Rosalind and all of this, and lets her know that sometimes she's the only one that makes him feel better. Meanwhile, he doesn't have a clue as to what he
Why
actually
that might
means when
be.
he says
Yeah.
that. I know, it's
Yeah.
so sad. And so we can see Musa secretly channeling her power to absorb Sam's emotion through her magic. And it's just like,
She must have been doing it for a while too, considering like
yes.
he said that, and I was just like, oh,
Mhm.
oh
Damn.
no. I think that's gonna have effects on Musa as well. Like I feel like with
Ooh.
Musa's, magic, maybe she's gonna start to struggle because of the fact that like she had been doing this for so long. Like there is there's gonna be an effect from this. So
Yes. Like
yes.
no wonder. Dude, this is all falling into place. And
Oh,
this is the first episode.
right. It's just wild to like watch it back and really like
Oh,
pick up on all of this. So
yes, man. And then also like in uh like the rest of this like sequence of scenes, there's this like scene montage of like Riven and Dane and Beatrix like quote unquote having fun together, which oh my god. And then like Sky's little like training montage outside with his little like swords at night. He's working
oh
extra
gosh,
hard.
yeah.
I This a whole sequence was so cringe to me. I was like, I can't watch this.
Like I understand why Sky's doing what he's doing, but like, oh my
Ugh.
goodness. Like I
Like we
just
could have had it in like not a montage mode. I think the montage is what makes me cringe. Not like the fact that he needed to like vent, and like get it all out. The fact that it's in this format, I'm like, I didn't need it this way.
Yeah, I could definitely like see that. Also, like we did learn a few things from this scene that I think were kind of like valuable in a way. Not too
Mm.
valuable, but like um when Sky was like out doing his thing, setting up the battlefield and the target and
Yeah.
whatnot. Number one, we learned there's a bong and ribbons like window seal. Like, okay, so maybe they're like under the influence right now. We don't know,
Oh,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
whatever. Number
But
two,
also, that's an influence on Beatrix because he used to vape.
yes, yes.
So that's funny.
And then I think she picked up his vaping habit as well, like inside Riven's dorm. Yeah, in
Oh,
season one.
yeah.
Yeah, she was like
Incredible.
wild.
Wow.
But um, number two, Dane feels bad about what he said to Sky, and Riven is like saying like, dude, he's fine. Like it's not a big
Mm-hmm.
deal. But Dane's like, he doesn't seem fine. Like he seemed really upset. Like, and Riven says that like Sky just needs time to cool down, and that shows me that Riven kind of knows because we
Mm-hmm.
already know he's kind of ahead of the game with like predicting things. That
Yeah.
maybe that's what's gonna happen here with Silva. Maybe some time could like really help
Oh.
alleviate the stress for Sky.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's fine. He just needs to calm down. Yeah.
yeah. And then also I did notice that like during their little makeout session, I don't buy the whole thing that Riven says that he doesn't have like any feelings for Dane because at some
Mm-hmm.
point he does take control and grabs Dane by the chin and like
Mm-hmm.
he seems a little too into it, but I
Yes.
don't
No, for
know.
real though.
And I think that leads into like what we've talked about with like the cut, the cuts and the
Mm-hmm.
limitations to what they can put in like 7 episodes. So
Yeah, which is so unfortunate because like this is only the first episode. There's so much more to this season that we are going to get into that like there are characters that are pivotal to the plot that we haven't even met yet in this first episode. And so like it's crazy the short amount of time that they got all of this into, which is why it feels so rushed at times. And I get that, but like, oh, we could have used that eighth episode. We could have.
for real.
We
But it's good
absolutely
on the
could have.
watch back because like we get so much still, and I'm just like,
Hmm.
that's nice that like it's one of those
Yeah,
shows that like every time you rewatch it, you'll learn something new. So
totally.
maybe not now
Absolutely.
that we've done this, but like yeah.
Yeah.
Um
I also think that the poly relationship in Fate 2 was handled like poorly because of all of the cuts and all of the
yeah.
like, like I think that they didn't like I'm glad that they didn't make it just like a little like oh like love triangle of like between like Dane and Riven for Beatrix, but like eventually that is kind of like what happens like without getting into any like spoilers like in a way like there it does kind of like turn into that with like Riven like denying like the feelings for Dane or whatever,
Yeah.
So it's just like I don't know. I feel like it was like really shallow how they like presented that relationship, and I wish that like they had more time to
Hmm.
explore the complexities of like a polyamorous relationship and like
But instead
they
we get
could
the cautionary tale of like, the three walking red
I
flags.
know, and it's like,
So
come on. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But and also they fizzled out way sooner in season 2 than I thought that they
mhm.
would. That's a
Same.
foreshadow.
Yeah.
Like that's a spoiler alert, but like yeah, I'm like, "Oh, like wow, that soon?" Okay. Again, I think it is to push the Revusa agenda,
Hmm.
but still,
It was
it's
definitely, yeah, for that. So
yeah, for sure, for sure. So elsewhere, or like after I guess like their little cute meet, Stella approaches Sky and Ribbon's dorm but retreats as soon as she sees Beatrix open the door to exit the room. And Beatrix informs her that Sky is not in the room. And like Stella is feeling like extra pathetic and awkward. So she like turns around to like a lonely yet welcoming glance from Beatrix, who offers her a drink in so many words. Like Beatrix just
mhm.
like, I need a drink.
I need a drink. Yeah, like
Yeah, like
of course you do.
so
You're
funny.
guilty. Like
Yes, yes. This is
that's
your fault.
exactly. So
Damn, I didn't
um
even think about that. Oh,
and on top of that, it goes into the fact that like she has two guys in there and she's still feeling lonely. Like she's really like
yeah. Yeah,
the lone
though.
wolf no matter what. And so maybe that's part of like the unspiraling too, is that when she connects with like Stella, or like starts to form this dynamic, she kind of
Mm-hmm.
realizes like what's no longer really serving her, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really like work out anyways. So
Yeah, no,
things don't
totally.
work out the best for her. So
Dude, also, I just remembered something from season one. Doesn't it imply in the last episode of season one that Riven and Dane are under some kind of spell for Rosalind?
um I think Rosalind, it does. See, that's what I thought. I thought that they were under a spell, but also
Mm-hmm.
I did hear from somebody else that the implication was that she was just scanning them to see if she could trust them. So,
Boo.
right,
Lame.
right.
I wanted them to be under a spell.
Same, because I was thinking about
Ah,
like season one with
where is
Darcy and
that?
Riven at the
Yeah, I was
bar.
too. I was just
Yes,
thinking that. Yes.
great minds think alike.
Oh, yes. No, dude, that is exactly what I thought too. And so, like, for them to not even bring it up in season two, and I was like,
Mhm.
well, I guess that's another thing they axed. I don't know.
Right. Just like
So,
another thing too, the
ugh,
Solaria ring. Keep an eye on that because
for real, suspicious.
in season one, when she's out in the forest, she has the ring and it doesn't or she doesn't have the ring and she can't use her
Mm-hmm.
powers. But then all of a sudden, like when she gets it back, everything's fine. Like, hmm. I
Hmm.
think it's one of those things too that like they kind of forgot about it in season two. Like
Yes.
it's there like briefly, but like
It
yeah.
is a very, let's just say it's very on brand for a Winx Club
Hmm.
IP to forget things that they established in earlier
Yes.
seasons.
And maybe it's just the device
Maybe.
itself. Like, yeah. Maybe it's just that forgettable. Because like originally, Stella has to have the ring to use her magic until she
Mm-hmm.
reaches Enchantix, I think. But like
Yeah.
regardless, yeah.
As the episode seems to be coming to a close, Bloom is visiting Rosalind again and tells her that she has been, in fact, holding back her magic, and because she's like scared. She admits that in the past prioritizing her magic over everything else only led to issues. Rosalind counters, that sentiment that Bloom is the reason that she's here now, and to which Bloom, highlights the mass disapproval of Rosalind and her actions by like the entire student body and others. And Rosalind tells Bloom that, like she doesn't care what people think of her. She doesn't care if people like her or hate her. And Bloom's like, well, that's funny because like it seems Bloom seems to think that Rosalind cares for Bloom, and she, in some aspect of the sense, does think Rosalind cares more about Bloom's power than anything, but again, like Bloom is kind of naive and kind of like easily trusting in some
But she's also
senses.
playing into Rosalind's
She
hand here in this
is.
scene.
She
So
she really really is.
yeah,
Yes. And so Bloom tells Rosalind that she doesn't want to hold back anymore, and then asks Rosalind for one-on-one lessons in an attempt to like gain her trust and ultimately bring Rosalind down.
so good. I love this scene because like we really see Rosalind like creak at the very end. Like she tries
Mhm.
not to like totally lose the expression that she had on, but you can see it in her face. There's a brief shot where she gets a
Yep.
smile and the music changes. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
okay, this is what she wants. She wants this girl
Mhm.
like to, play right into what she's planning, like make her
Absolutely.
lose control. And so yeah, like that's just like really telling. But I'm also glad that Bloom is not naive enough to like believe it, like that like
Right.
Rosalind is on her team. Like she's very aware that like this is
How this
not,
happens.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think that this is a really important speech though that kind of like Rosalind gives, because it does show that she has like, her own agenda. Like she's
Mhm.
giving the like zealous war leader 101 speech of like,
Yes, she is.
yeah,
She's monologuing.
mm-hmm, I don't care what the
Yes.
masses say. And she's, putting herself above everyone. And
Mhm.
like, she's given
Wow.
like power trip vibes. So
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, not to mention she's already responsible for like a whole genocide of a whole like nation.
Yes.
It's hilarious. Like, hello.
So she's like, yeah,
uh,
she's
it's
definitely
terrible.
not a good character.
Not a
So
good, not a good vibe. So, back at the Wink Suite, Bloom is telling Aisha about her plan to like, play along with Rosalind's interests so that she can figure out what she's up to take her down. When she kind of like stops and like asks Aisha if she believes that Bloom is like quote unquote going too far by asking Rosalind for lessons. And I love this. This is when Aisha just kind of like takes a moment. She like retorts that she can no longer be Bloom's moral compass. Like she tried to in season 1 only to be in this mess, like,
yeah.
and like good for Aisha, like set that boundary. Like we love to
Right?
see that.
We
Like
needed it.
we
So
needed it. Yes. Oh my gosh.
I love that whole dialogue too, because like at the very end of it, Bloom's like, so like tell me about Gray, like what's going on with him? Can I
Yes.
ask about Gray now? So she already like
Yeah.
knows Aisha's guardedness, and so she like asks it in a way where it's like
Is it okay to talk
asking to
about
be
this
invited
yet?
in.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much.
It's really cute. Um And so in the end, Stella and Beatrix are discussing their um like past traumas and try to kind of like one up each other with it. And Stella even asks like, "Are we about to do a trauma off?" Like
Yeah.
that's so funny. But they are interrupted as a badly wounded Devin arrives on the
Hmm.
scene. When they ask him what happened, he only says one word before fainting. Rosalind. And then of course we
Yes.
get this scene of Rosalind like, making her way to her cryptic East Wing lab in Althea, and we see a little bit of what she's been up to down there with like the creature that we saw earlier trapped in this like metal box. And then we see these two missing twins that they
Hmm.
mentioned earlier in the episode. They're like convulsing on this like bed they're tied down to. And then we see an empty bed, to which we have to assume like Devin was in, because all Rosalind
Definitely.
says when she sees it is shit. And then
They
cut to
cut the
end
credits.
credits. Roll the credits, like
Wow.
that's it. Like
This was so good. This was like a great ending to an episode. Like
Mhm.
I love the music at the end. I also love the cinematic sequence of the back and forth between Devin and the girls, and like
Yes. And
Rosalind
the
going to her.
music,
Yes,
like with the
yes.
steps. Oh my
So
gosh.
good. And then we finally see the shot of him falling to his knees at the front. And I'm just like, oh my gosh,
Oh
this
no.
is truly something else. I will say that does remind me of something.
Mm,
Do you think
mm,
do you think
mm.
that's kind of like when a certain fairy showed up to Althea in season 2 of Winx Club? Like,
Yo, actually,
yes.
yes. Wait
The
a
entrance
minute.
of Aisha slash Layla in the original Winx Club, she stumbles out of the forest and like plops down
Just
in front of all
plops
the girls.
down. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god."
So
Yes.
it's kind of like an adaptation of
Wait.
that in a way, because Aisha's
Yes.
already in the Winx. So
Right. Man, if we had a season 3, like if Devin was gonna be like a part of the gang, that would have been so cool because
right.
like if yeah, man, another mind fairy would be so
Right.
great.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Also like
dang.
the off-brand Crocs, like being Adidas. Come on. Like
Off-brand? We're thinking they're
off-brand
like
Crocs.
dollar store Crocs. Ma'am,
Yeah.
those are Adidas. They are like
Yes.
$100 a maybe.
Somebody
Like,
had beef when writing that, or somebody
yes.
thought that that was funny. I just know that like we're not the first to mention that. So
Yes.
but
That is so funny.
it's very clear that like now Beatrix knows about like the presence of Stella's gem.
Mhm.
And I love that they like kind of opened up to each other, because that also sets the stage for like what's going to happen
Yeah.
later with them, as well as like with Beatrix and all the other people she's connected to. So I
I
love
can't.
that aspect. And we finally learned the rattling noise at that end sequence. Yes.
Yes.
Also, like it leaves us with so many questions at the end. Like we're left
Mhm.
wondering why she has all these students back there. Did she attack them? Was it somebody else?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
did she just like, find them after they were attacked? Or does the
Mhm.
Solarian army know about this? Is this her own plan? Like,
Yes.
you're just wondering like what is going on, like,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
love
Like,
that because it's the cliffhanger that gets you
mhm.
drawn back in, and it's just so good. Such a good episode.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, I do like to end rewatches by kind of recapping our favorite moments of the episode. In the original series rewatches, we call them Winx Forever moments, but here, of course, we've got to call them Fate Forever moments. So,
It's a good
what would you
name.
say is your Fate Forever moment? And I want to like kind of position these two as like maybe it's like your favorite moment from this episode, or even
Okay.
your favorite moment that reminds you of the original series, even.
I love the scene where they're all like in the suite together, and
Mm,
Tara is like saying, like, no matter what happens out there and here, things are good. That is like such
yes.
a sweet moment. And like we said, like it has such like good feminine unity, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
so reminiscent of the classic Winx Club.
Yes, I
So
agree. I think that that would be mine as well, except since you brought that one up, I'll bring up a separate one that was like my runner up is the car scene. For
yeah,
sure, the car scene.
the car
I
scene is so good.
love the car scene. I think that that is such a cute moment in time, and like it's just like
So much
for
is
us
happening in there. Yeah.
so much, and like for a second they forget that they're trying to like go jailbreak like this like fugitive, and like like they're just teenagers, like,
Right.
and it's
Oh
just
my
it's so
gosh.
cute, it's so cute.
Yeah.
A little bit of trivia. So each one of the episodes in this season, similar to last season, each title of the episode is a different like Celtic poem
Hmm.
excerpt. So each this is so funny. Each title of the episodes in this season are all either magic related or like lyrics to a song. And so this one is actually a reference to the song Burn the Witch by Radiohead. So
Oh
like
wow.
yeah, so like there's like all of these titles are going to be some kind of like play on words with that, which is like it's really fun. Like I
Yeah.
like the intentionality of like the way that they named them. The naming convention is just like that's just another layer of like thought that they put into this series, which I think is very fun.
Right. It's like
So
an artistic, like young adults show. Like it kind of
yes,
has like the
yeah.
vibes of like, because like I've seen, the other ones like The Vampire
Mm-hmm.
Diaries and Teen Wolf,
Of
but something
course.
about Fate does stand out in the sense that like because it's for streaming and it's not for broadcast, and they have like so much
Yes.
more time to like plan, but
Mm-hmm.
also it's much more condensed. It really
Mm-hmm.
is like very thought out with like everything. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
yeah.
Well, I am super excited to dive into the rest of the season with you, Dane. Dane will be
Me
here for
too. Oh my
all 7
gosh.
episodes. Super excited to have him join me on this magical adventure through
It's gonna be
Faith the
so
Wink
fun.
Saga. I'm so excited. This has been a blast. So, Dane, tell our listeners where they can find you and your content online.
Yeah, if you want to follow me, best place to follow me would be on TikTok at
Mhm.
just Dane Dane. I used to post Winx videos on there much more than I do now, but like now that I have these comics, I definitely have some plans in store for some fun things. So
Yes.
yes, that would be a great place to follow me on.
Incredible. Yeah. And you can also chat with us about some of your favorite moments of this episode over in our Discord, the Winx Forever Podcast Discord. We have a channel just for podcast discussion. So, and also we have channels just for Faith the Winx Saga. So come join us over there and let's talk about Winx Club. Let's talk about all
Yeah,
things
for
Winx.
sure.
Yes. Awesome. Well, until next time, guys, I am Lola Valentine,
And I am just Dane Dane.
and this is the Winx Forever Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes drop. The theme for the Winx Forever podcast is the song She Makes Magic by Big Wild.